This is Chris VK3AML, as usual, on this very cold evening. Initially just saying hello to the stream people, I hope. The people watching on stream. I've not yet fired up the radio. That comes in 2 minutes at 9:30. This week, haven't had a great deal of time to prepare very much, with the exception of Jared Quinn's lecture, VK2WAY. I've got permission from him to run that. Jared is a chap in his late 30s, very much into computers and IT, very computer literate, as most young people are, young by my standards, being 68. And he brings to amateur radio a whole different perspective in terms of computer literacy to the medium. He's come into it rather from IT than from, as people would in my day, from Elmer's working in ham radio, or in the 1960s and 70s seeing ham radio as one of the peak electronic pursuits that you could do at that time. Computers not yet being around that could do much more than add up 2 plus 2 and get 4. No sound card, often no screen to speak of early on. So Jared Quinn will be the second item on the program. I usually put something on that just leads into it to start off with, but I thought I'd lead in with Bob Heil, who's an audio authority, both in the PA field for musicians and in the ham radio field. He's K9EID, the call sign, and he'll do a talk on understanding speech articulation. It was originally delivered at the Radio Symposium at Slidell, Louisiana in July 2019. And I may have only a time to run a part of that. I haven't been able to get permission from the people who originally had the upload, so I hope I'm not going to get a copyright strike. If I do, I'll immediately withdraw it. We get the notification as we stream it. Anyway, with that, I see it's time to go on the air. I'll just check that I've got a stream. Looking at the web page. Oh gosh. Have we or haven't we? I think we have. Ah yes, we've got a few viewers too. 3 viewers at this stage. So, sorry about all the delay. One of the problems I have here is that we've been away from home for 4 days. My wife has had spinal surgery in February and has been very housebound, so we really had to get away for a few days to stop going stir crazy. With that, I'll go to air. Hello, this is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima with the usual Saturday night test transmission. The theme this week being the younger generation, I suppose, of radio hams, those under 40 years of age, many of whom have come into the hobby via information technology, via computers. And one of these, Jared, VK2WAY, I've been very happy to get permission from him to run a talk he gave to the Waverley Radio Club up in Sydney very recently, talking about his particular interest in ham radio, which really, to somebody of my generation who came into ham radio via, I suppose you'd say, Elmer's, and via seeing in the 1960s ham radio as being one of the peak pursuits that one could approach electronics to achieve. Now, of course, IT, internet, all the rest of it is well and truly the peak, and we can only hope that some of the people involved with IT, like Jared, will bring their expertise in linking computers with radio in new and unexpected ways, inventive ways that we probably don't yet imagine let alone achieve. But first, Bob Heil, K9EID, with a talk on understanding speech articulation, originally delivered to the W9DYV Radio Symposium at Slidell, Louisiana in July 2019. Haven't been able to get permission to use this. Don't know whether we'll have a copyright strike during the live stream. We'll trust to luck, and I'm sure that Bob Heil will appreciate the exposure in a country like Australia, where he's not perhaps as well known as in his home country of America. Bob has more than 50 years' experience of sound reinforcement in the music game, and as K9EID, he applies that very ably to promoting speech articulation and audio quality for ham radio. Bob Heil, K9EID.
I listen to signals on the air, and they're absolutely terrible. And it's all because they haven't really learned some of the cool things that they should know. And I always say it should be question number 2. Let's start that PowerPoint. And okay, where are we at here? This little dude, right? Yeah, right. Gotcha. Okay, I'll trade you places. This is how I started. I still have it. I'm on the air every morning when I'm down in my Pleasant Hope home, and my beloved Harvey Wells, and it's still running. David, are you here? Yeah, still has the original 1956 tubes. But there's a reason. I have a Variac. Oh, serious. The power switch is always on my vintage console, and all I do, I have a digital meter to tell me, is that okay to say digital? Can I say that? A digital meter to tell me the voltage, and I run it up to about 108 to 110. That's it, and that's why I think all of this stuff has worked so long. The problem we have today is all of the vintage gear uses high impedance microphones. And if you're not going to use the crystal microphones, then you're kind of out of luck. But there are advantages to that, but there are also salvations to it. One of the reasons we use crystal microphones, they were designed in the 1930s by a company called Brush. And there was a huge fight between Brush and a Static. And finally, a Static won, and they of course, build many of the D104 type things. But look at that register. My goodness, it's very peaky in the mid-range. And so for all of the guys say, I gotta have it flat. It's gotta be flat. No, it doesn't. No way. And we're gonna learn. Why would you have such a silly-looking response? Well, it certainly isn't flat. And as many of you, I didn't understand this until one day my phone rang. That you, Heil? And I said, yes, sir. Who's it? This is Klipsch. I'm going this. Paul Klipsch? This is God on the other end of this phone. How many people know of Paul Klipsch? He was the father of the folded horn, actually the movement of hi-fi. That was the guy. And he said, you got a cornfield I can come and crash in? He was a crusty old guy. I said, no, but we have an airport about 8 miles south. Well, I'll be there. You got a 10,000 watt PA? And I said, yes, sir, I got a couple of them. I want to come and see it. I figured, this is going to be interesting. He's going to cut me off at the knees and feed it back to me. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Because what happened is I started learning things that day and the following day. He was the father of the folded horn. This was in his laboratory. It's a plexiglass speaker box, but what you don't see is the last 8 foot of it. 4 foot on this side and 4 on that side, which is your room. This fits in the corner, and your room is actually the last of the 16 foot of that horn. Anybody ever heard or experienced a K-horn? Am I kidding you? There is nothing like it. And it's an experience, right? I mean, it's a religious experience. I know you're saying, that's another damn speaker. No, it's not. Because your room is actually this part of the speaker. This guy was really something, and I was so blessed.
I'll just interrupt that to say this is VK3AML, and this is a lecture by Bob Heil, K9EID. If you want to see the video side of this, please Google VK3AML 6 August 2022. That's Google VK3AML 6 August 2022. We're running a live stream of the video that goes with this audio. This is VK3AML testing, and back to Bob Heil.
He put me in his airplane and flew me back to Hope, Arkansas. He wanted to know about some of this. He wanted to know who in the world would do this. Well, I was very fortunate. One day I rolled through the Fox Theater parking lot, and they had a couple of the big bins. They were throwing them away. And I asked the stage manager, I said, "Can I have them?" "Yeah," I said, "You know, hams don't throw anything away." So I started the whole little scene with that. Paul guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. How many here have done the studies? How many? See, that is sacrilegious. It should have been question 2 or 3 on our amateur radio test. Because what is one of the number one things about ham radio? It's listening. Well, it's all right there. The Bell Labs, it was an idea factory of the 20s, and it was a constellation of American Telephone Telegraph, AT&T, and Western Electric. And they manufactured under their arm called Bell System, and they did a lot of things. They had check this out, 4,000 scientists and engineers, and they were assigned to this newly created Bell Telephone Labs. They were dedicated in researching how our ears worked. Why? When they set up the first telephone system, they started in New York. Now think about this. They ran 2 wires from there to California. And about every 50 miles, they would have a relay station. They kept the voltage up. They kept the frequency up. And when they got all out to the West Coast and turned on the phone system,
this is what they heard. What in the world happened to all the voltages are right? All the frequencies right? What happened? So they put Dr. Fletcher and they put Dr. Munson on the case. What did they find out? They discovered our ears have a big problem. We certainly do not hear flat. And so, what's the deal? There's one other thing about this. You will notice that the louder we listen, the flatter it is. So don't go gripe at the kids for listening to loud music. They want to hear it all. They want to hear the cymbals, they want to hear the vocals, they want to hear the bass. It's one of the reasons. But when we're listening down here at 30 or 40, look at that. So if the systems you listen to at these levels, if those systems are not equalized, we're in trouble. We certainly can't do it flat. It just can't happen because you just heard it flat. So what we have to do is pay attention. We have to do a complete redesign. We did it on our sound system, and it was really something. We had a 15 to 20,000 watt system. We had 4 of them. And after I redid them and took Paul's advice and his schooling, it came to about 10,000 watts. The systems covered the arenas better. They sounded so much better. And we were running much less power. Why? Because we paid attention to what Bell Labs had taught us. These are some of the systems, just a few. We did several thousand concerts during my career. All of those speakers were built in our plant in Marissa, Illinois. That's all fiberglass. I discovered that wood and metal, they ring, they have resonance to them. Fiberglass doesn't. And Paul thought that was really, really cool that I wanted to do this. And he helped me do all of the different designs. And we could spend all day. And these are just a few of the people that we
we did their and we're still out there. Only in 1980, I got out of the business, and we're just doing microphones for just about all of those people, and it was a great time. Hey, question: anybody know who that is? You won't. You won't. That was their first tour that we did. We're still doing their things. That happens to be ZZ Top without beards. You look at it again, and you might say, yeah, I see that. You can see the system is all plywood. We didn't even have it covered. It was one of our very first systems. I showed that to Billy. Billy is a wonderful, brainy, just an unbelievable person. He reads a lot, knows a lot about things. I love spending time with him. And I showed him this picture that was given to me by one of the radio stations in St. Louis where that happened. I said, what do you see here? I'm expecting him to say something about the beards. Hey, hey, Heil, you see all those kids out there? Look at all those kids. They're all grandpas and grandmas. We had way too much fun. Let's get back into radio. I thought I'd give you a little running history. If you didn't know some of that, that's just a little piece of it. And in 1980, I got back into it, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What happened to my great Art Collins articulate audio? What happened? Because I kept hearing this stuff that was all mushy and bassy about what you heard a minute ago. Well, oh, I got my matching microphone on my Keenwood. Really? Matching, huh? Yeah. Well, let me tell you about that matching stuff. I now, in the last 12 years, I work for the companies. ICOM, Yaesu. I was the guy that brought equalizers to ham radio. And I know what's going on the other side. They don't build their microphones. They sort it out to some OEM company, paint it the same color, put the name on it. They fooled you all this time. They'll be matching. You're damn right, it's the same color, but it certainly isn't good enough. We took care of what that microphone should be. But I just missed all of this. And there's basically, and I learned this from the Bell Lab studies, I still every once in a while go back and read through some of that and see if I missed something, and I usually have. These are 4 important things about audio, and especially on our ham radio stations. Room echo is a biggie, because we don't have a lot of foam or audio panels. There's all kinds of stuff that we do in the studios for that. We don't have that in ham radio. It's usually in a back room and sometimes with your washing machine. That really has a lot to do with it. The frequency response, as you heard, really is important. We'll get into a little more of that. And sound pressure. You saw if it's louder or lower, it all changes response. So you have to understand that. And the other thing that really disgusts me is distortion. We should outlaw compression. We do not need compression. And if you disagree with me, we're going to have a talk, and you will lose. Because I can prove it. I can prove it. The other thing that really bugs me is how people address a microphone. Is that a chapter in our license manuals? No. Well, it's very important. Because here's some of the deals. If you double the distance of this microphone, you lose 6 dB. It's a little bit tough because you're hearing me acoustically. Listen what happened to my signal. Oh, well, that's no big deal, Heil. Just crank it up. Uh-huh. Then you know what you're going to do. I really can't do it in a room like this. There'll be a lot of feedback. But if you crank up the gain, what happens? Room echo. Like you're in a gymnasium, no matter what your room is. And every time you move that microphone, you just lost 6 dB. 6. We're going to come back to this, and you're going to really, really understand it when we do some of the other things. And what I always tell the things, don't do this. No more of this. I hate desk stands. Why? because they put them here and, hey, I'm just really damn cool. No, you're not. I can't understand you. I hear the room echo louder than you. You shouldn't be more than 2 inches away from a microphone, no matter who you are, what you got, what you think. We're talking about science. Science. I mean, I just prove it to you. When you back off, you lose dynamic range. You lose transient response. And when you talk to the guys in the morning, Bill will tell you, yeah, he does sound damn fine. Okay, and Bill's going to tell you, Jim's going to tell you. But you don't. How do you know? There's only one way. You listening in a second receiver with headphones. Oh, but I don't sound the same. No, you're not going to sound the same as you hear yourself. But listen to that signal that you're listening to. Then you can adjust things. And we just have to learn how to address a microphone. It's very important. I came off the road in 1980, and I started listening around, and I'm going, what in the world? I hooked up with a guy here in town in Metairie, Buddy Massa. Anybody knew Buddy? Nick does, I know that. And I got involved on 40 meters every night, and we got to talking about this. I said, I don't like this audio nonsense. What's going on? And he agreed. He says, it's all these import radios and these guys using these crummy microphones. And they think it's great because it's matching. So I fixed it. I brought to this industry the first time anybody had ever heard the word equalization on a transmitter. This is a little EQ box I built. I wrote an article. It got the cover award. I didn't even know what a cover award was. I was very honored by that. And we are now able to adjust bass and treble. And so when we plugged in our MC50 and it sounded like that, Bill said it'll sound just fine. Well, good for Bill. However, we're losing all of those beautiful articulate frequencies. We want to bring the mids up. So roll off the low end and bring in the high end. And listen how much easier. Now listen. Listening is a very, very cool thing. It's a mental process. Not physical, mental. I'm going to do this again. And just listen to it. Here we're going to go back flat. There you are, absolutely flat. That's what you have in your transmitters. Well, what happens if we bring in a little bit of treble and roll off a little low end? Even at my low voice, it's so much easier to understand the difference of an F and an S, a P or a B. Only thing I'm touching is the tone control. And you don't have one on your radio unless it's one of the later ones. Then you get the guys that, well, hey, I got a really cool signal, man. I got all this low end. And they get this thing on the air and you can't understand a damn word. Then they're going to tell you, well, your receiver's not wide enough. I got news for you, buddy. If you're wider than 2.9 or 3K, you better not get in my face. Because no one has told them how important it is to get rid of the bass, because that's where all your RF power is. You don't need it. If you get rid of everything under 100, it's going to put it on up to 2.5K region where you really need it. And that is all about equalization. And I was very fortunate that I got people to listen to me. And one of them was Dr. Inouye, who owns ICOM, 1999. He sent me a picture of his station. This is Mr. ICOM. And the picture was one of my gold line microphones and this little guy. And I'm just some little freak sitting in Marissa, Illinois, a little mining town and 2,000 people in southern Illinois. And here's this giant man that had my products. And he said, we got to do something. I'm thinking of a new radio, and I want to put your equalizer in it, I just want to make sure that we do this right. And so I started working with ICOM, everything from the Pro 1 all the way through to the 7300, 7610, has bass and treble, 2-band equalization, because Dr. Inouye, he discovered how important it was. And so we have it all happening. But as I say, you want to roll off everything under 100 cycles, because it all happens from 2 to 3K. Because if I take that 2 to 3K out, you're not going to be very pleasant sounding. Okay, so you like your MC50. You think I'm kidding? That's what they sound like. Mine don't sound... Yes, it does. I have hours of recordings. You want me to play them for you. So anyway, it's just, I think you can hear some of the vast differences. I can make this with these 2 buttons. That's it. And so once you get involved in this and you understand what has to happen, you can make your system sound really good. Well, after the equalizer, I'm going, wait a minute. Buddy Massa, W9DYV VSR, Metairie, Louisiana. He was one of my beta testers for this. He said, hey, Heil, you know, every time we set this thing, it's usually at the same position. Bring up the 2K, roll off the low end. Why don't you build a microphone like that? And so we did. And we built the HC4. We built the HC5 first. Anybody have an HC5? Of course you do. A lot of people do. You have a couple of them. Because they sound good and you don't have to do anything to them. Then, the North California DX Club in 1985, they were using old Supro headsets. Some of them were even duct tape and D104s, and it was crazy. They said, build us a microphone for contesting. And we did. I should have brought one with me, but anyway, that microphone sounds about like this. It's terrible sounding. It's the worst sounding microphone you could ever create. Why would you do that? Because everything I'm sending to you is happening between about 1,000 cycles and about 2.2. That's it. But all my RF power is there. So guess who's going to be on top of the pile? It's going to be that guy. 100,000 or more later, we're still there. And we're still building some of those great, great sounds. I will never, ever not. Right now, anybody have some of these? If you don't, why not? Without a doubt, it is the best headset ever. Why do I say that? Because it's mine? No, it's why I built it. This headset is the only headset that does a lot of things. Number one, I went back to my Paul Klipsch days. I've always wanted to do this, but I'd never had room in a normal headset. We took the speaker outside, just like we do in speaker cabinets, did a free air cone resonance of that speaker. Then we treat the inside where it's mounted to correspond with that, so that the speaker doesn't move. There's no distortion. And that's what we're after, is getting rid of distortion. This is the only headset. I know there are copies out there, but they're just copies. The people building are not into audio. They have never met Paul Klipsch. They haven't read the Bell Lab reports. I know, because I've talked to my competition. They don't even know how to wire a damn connector. I mean, it really gets sickening to me. And they're trying to put themselves to you as they're some kind of genius. No, they're not. The other thing I have on here is I have a phase control. What? A phase reversal? What in the world is that about? It's the only headset in the world, and all of ours do have phase reversal. Anybody here have our headsets and understand this? It's incredible. And you're going to say, what do you do with that? Well, when you reverse the phase, you can shift things around. You get in a pile up, and you hear this little bitty weakie back here. You reverse the phase, he comes up front, and the rest go behind. You actually, acoustically, can move signals in your head with that headset. No other person has ever done that. And I don't know why. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a damn organ player. But I love ham radio a lot. Pro 7, it's really incredible. Check it out. But we took advantage of this. That, by the way, is the newest headset, or the newest microphone. It's the HC7. It's the same thing. We just call it a different number. But all of our microphones have this rich mid-range in them. Even the broadcast microphones. Sirius Radio just tossed all of their RE20s and bought 350 PR40s. Now, it was a struggle. The first few years we had it out, the broadcast, that thing ain't no good. He's just a ham radio op. That's just one of these ham mics. No, it's not. No. I do have a little more brain than just this much here. I knew we needed more, and so I did. What's really cool about it is we worked on patterns. And very few microphones in the ham radio market are talking about this. They're just cheap little Chinese, and yes, they are Chinese elements, and it's really sad. But they're matching. I mean, what the heck? But we have a pattern. And all of them do this. If you're watching me, I'm 90 degrees off. If this was anybody else's microphone, you'd be losing a lot. But as I move a whole 180 degrees, it stays with me. That was number one. Most of these designs, when I wanted to get in the pro industry, was done on a kitchen table in Studio City with Joe Walsh. Joe and I are very, very good friends. We have been for years. Actually, the thing you saw was 10 years ago. We're over 45 years now. And he said, you got to build me a microphone for the stage. I said, well, you got your ball microphone. Yeah, but it's no good. I said, what do you mean? Everybody uses it. He takes me downstairs, grabs my ham radio gold line, plugs it in, and it outperforms an SM58. I was really surprised because I wasn't stupid enough to do that, but I should have.
This is VK3AML with the regular Saturday night test transmission, currently streaming Bob Heil, K9EID, a lecture on understanding speech articulation with ham radio. And we'll be proceeding on to a lecture in about 20 minutes by Jared Quinn, VK2WAY, who's actually with us on text chat. If you want to look in on this, the video side of things, please Google VK3AML 6 August 2022. That's Google VK3AML 6 August 2022, and you'll come up with the video on YouTube live stream. Back to Bob Heil.
So he said, let's work on this. You got to do this. And he said, the patterns are great. So then he said, when I'd come through town and you had that big antenna, he said, you turned that antenna around, I couldn't hear you. How'd you do that? I said, well, it's all about phasing. Really? Well, why don't you apply that to the microphone? Then I won't pick up my monitors and I won't pick up that guy and I'll just hear me. I said, well, we can do that. We can do a pattern just like we need for whatever you want. If you haven't had fun yet, or you haven't learned anything yet, get set. You will never, mark my word, never forget the next 5 minutes. because I don't think anyone's ever helped you learn about this stuff. Let me turn this off. Put his ears off when I get all this going. Okay, now let's get the other one. Now what's interesting is their microphones are the same. Yeah, I know they're different colors. Okay, I have to get all this exactly right because this is really a scientific project. This isn't just some little passing fancy thing. It's the real deal. Okay, we have two microphones and you will agree they're exactly alike. It's a microphone that I actually built first for Paul Rogers. Anybody know who Paul Rogers is? Bad Company back in the day. What are we going to learn here? First of all, this microphone is very peaky. He wanted something with not a lot of low end. It had a nice balance to it. But we didn't want all that stupid low, and he didn't have to tell the sound man to adjust 2.5. It's already done. You are running 500 watts. And you're not getting through the pile-ups with your matching microphone. And so you're going to go spend some money and buy a kilowatt. Okay? How many decibels are you going to provide more? 3. Do you really know how loud 3 dB is? Has anybody ever set you down to let you hear what 3 dB is? You might want to cover up your ears as he's doing. I told you you're not going to forget. And this is not a magic act. This is a science project. This is the honest to God truth. When you double your power, you gain 3 dB. When I talk into both of these microphones, you can see my meter. It will go up 3 dB. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Something's wrong. Let's do it again. Remember what I talked about listening? Listening is it's a mental process. It really is. Everybody just hears. Very few people I meet really hear. They listen, they just hear. Okay, play with me. Do this. Close your eyes. I mean, get in this mode to really, you got to really listen because we're going to double our power. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take it away. 1, 2, 3. You can't hear it because the human being can't detect 3 decibel. Unless we'd be in an echo chamber and some really crazy laboratory project, and it wouldn't do you any good because it's not going to happen in your ham station.
I am so glad that Bob Heil has raised this because you wouldn't believe the number of amateurs who think that the survival of amateur radio in Australia depends on going from 450 watts or from 400 watts to a kilowatt. And it's not much more than 3 dB and you can't hear it. Back to Bob Heil. I've done my bit, VK3AML.
That's 3 dB. Now wait a minute. It's going to cost you $1,000 to double your power, right? Maybe more. Let me tell you what to do. Take the $1,000, give it to your wife to buy more shoes and purses, and you're going to be King Tut. But you didn't help your signal. But I can get you 10 dB just by adjusting your equalizer and using the right microphone. Whoa, that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Well, it's true. You can do it. That's really where I was not going with this. I just do it because it's fun. Here's where I was headed, but I like to do that because most people don't know how loud 3 dB isn't. I have this neat little plug. And I'm going to plug it in here. And then we're going to plug this in here. Big deal. Okay. They sure work fine. There's only one problem, a situation. That little plug is out of phase. David was telling you about what you can do with in and out phase, right? Well, you're about to hear and learn a whole lot about how it really takes part in your ham radio station. Because when I bring both of these microphones together, you know what happens? Nothing. Nothing. The damn bomb can go off and you're not going to hear it. Oh, they still work. But not together. This diaphragm is going that way and this one's going this way. Oh my God. How much time have I got? Have I got 3 hours? It's my favorite subject. It's my favorite subject. Think about it. How many of you have a Yagi? Do you really know what Dr. Yagi did when he designed it? Do you really know how it was designed? Think about it. You have a driven element. He figured this all out before computers. David will like that. He figured out if he could go so far in the boom out and make the director so long, he could get a little gain. If he could put one behind, little long, this one, and he turned it to California, oh, they're gone. Hello, goodbye. Because it's out of phase. And that's what I said. I need about 3 hours. You have a noise blanker. You have a notch filter. You got some idiot that's right beside you. You put, how does that work? It takes its signal and puts it out of phase. Goodbye, we'll see you later. On and on. Noise canceling headsets. How do they work? Being out of phase. How can I move things around? Because I can change the phasing. There is so much to do in ham radio about phasing, and damn it, I don't hear it, I don't read it. It's just stupid. Because these are things that really make your signal come or go if you apply it. First, you got to understand it. And it's, at least I'm not seeing it anywhere, and it just bugs me to death because I read all of these great manuals and it's, oh yeah, right, sure. The only problem is, they don't teach you anything. They're selling books. Then you get into adjusting your microphone. I talk to many, many people each day on the phone, and it's amazing how many of them don't understand. How do you set mic gain? Well, I set it till Bill said it'll sound fine. No, you look at the ALC meter, and you never want to see it go in the red. And then you say about 10 words, maybe it'll flicker once or twice on the peaks. It's a limiting control, and you don't want to overdrive it. It's the simplest thing, but I don't ever hear that. I don't ever read anything. Am I missing anything? You let me know. I don't ever read anything that says, this is how you adjust microphone gain. I got my way in actually it was 2001 before it came out. How many people know about the FT9000? Probably one of the, it might not be the best, but one of the coolest radio. It's got lots of stuff on it. One thing about it, it's got me all over the front panel. I finally got my way. It has a 3-pin XLR broadcast input connector. 3-pin. It's balanced line in. And it's wonderful. You take one of these balanced line microphones. No, not their stupid unbalanced Chinese thing. I'm talking about a true broadcast mic. You plug one of these in. If you have any RFI, they're gone. Because that's how you solve it. Balanced line. So every broadcast station in the world uses balanced connectors. Why can't we? I thought, wow, thank you, thank you. The next run, they took it out. However, I guess they weren't smart enough. They kept my board all the way through to the 1200. If you know how to wire the connector, they all can be wired for balance. Every cable that we build for a Yaesu in our plant is balanced. because we want you to build or use a balanced microphone.
And there Bob Heil was getting onto the balancing of lines to eliminate RF interference, particularly in a high RF field environment like a ham shack. I'll cut Bob Heil's lecture short there to go across to Jared's lecture, which was given to the Waverley Radio Club in Sydney some weeks ago. But just rounding out there, that was an extract, a lengthy extract of a lecture by Bob Heil, K9EID of Heil Audio, on understanding speech articulation, the impact of the Fletcher-Munson curves, where in the audio spectrum articulation comes, predominantly in the highs. And it was delivered as a lecture to the W9DYV Radio Symposium at Slidell, Louisiana in July 2019. So that was about close to 4 years ago. And this is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima, and now going across to a lecture by my friend Jared up in Sydney, VK2WAY. Jared represents really, I certainly don't want this to sound condescending, anything but people in my generation came into ham radio predominantly because they saw other people talking to people abroad, which no other way you could achieve at that time without paying huge amounts for STD or international dial trunk calls. Here were people that knew how to build equipment that were talking abroad. Well, that's become kind of slightly old hat, and if you want to be involved with peak electronics these days, it's more in IT, internet, computers. So to that extent, ham radio has become a bit of a second fiddle. But when young people come into ham radio from IT or from a computer background or with computer literacy, having been brought up with computers, as Jared has, they have a totally different and interesting perspective on the usage of ham radio and particularly its association with computer technology. So now I'll take you over to Sydney, to Jared, VK2WAY, who's actually on our text chat. If you want to ask questions to him, he's there to answer them on text on our live stream, which you can find by Googling VK3AML 6 August 2022. Over to Jared, VK2WAY.
I do a lot of organ concerts. I mean, I think most of you know that that's what I do. Been doing it since I was 12.
No, that's not
professionally
Jared.
Since I was
this
14.
Is Jared.
Recording this with the picture-in-picture from this camera and the slide deck, so I can just upload it to my YouTube later as well. So yeah, and I'll get to a part of why on that in a minute as well. And firstly, content warning. We're going to be talking about digital. We're going to be using the word internet here.
Yep.
If it's a problem, signal report, weather report at the end. We'll move on. My background. So this will date me, and we'll get to a little bit more on this in a moment though. This was my first game device I owned, 6502 based electronic toy. Love that CPU, still I want to design a whole architecture around it one day. But I started coding in '86. Actually, you'll come back to that one too. This was my first ever modem, 1200 baud. This was my first electronics. This was my first Linux. This was my first Unix. My first Unix. ZX. ZX was owned by Microsoft in the early 80s, later SCO, but that's why that version of the logo is there as well.
You stole it.
Does anyone recognise the one up in the top left? That was the first machine I coded on. It is a micro B. Who said that?
Micro B, yeah.
Yeah, so I was in year 3 of primary school, started coding because one arrived. And my mum's a teacher as well, so when that happened, when they were delivered to my primary school, she said, I don't know anything about these computer things, I'll buy you some books, and the rest is kind of history. My first radio, I did pack it in the mid-90s with VK2ZEN around Newcastle. Didn't know he was licensed, didn't know what he was doing. But it was really cool. We could talk to his BBS back at home at 1200 baud before Wi-Fi was invented.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what I want to talk about here is we let the ball go here. Hams let the ball go on packet. We should have been at the forefront of that. It was ahead of its game in the mid-90s. It's still doing 1200 and 9600 baud. We'll talk about that later too. 2.4 gigahertz Pringles Cantanas. I built some of these in the 90s too. We threw a 1.8 kilometre Wi-Fi throw on 802.11a. That was, we got 1 megabit across it. But still better than 9600 baud. And that was from, if anyone knows Newcastle, I lived at the top of Maud Street Hill near the Mudder Hospital. Sorry. I lived at the top of Maud Street Hill near the Mudder Hospital, if anyone knows Newcastle. And down near Woolies in Mayfield was my friend's other end of the link. We did lots of this kind of experimentation together in the 90s. Didn't really know that I should have gotten licensed. So I feel still I missed out on decades of my people and what I should have been doing, but trying to catch up now.
Yeah.
Bunch of other stuff, war driving, finding Wi-Fi when it was invented.
Free Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Just about a year ago, I reached out to Rafi. And I think Brian, first, and then Brian sent me to you, and I ended up with Eric, and soon after got licensed. Hoping to sit advanced in October, studying still, done some work with some folks, and we'll get to Heil later, in the US who are sitting there, generals and advanced as well at the moment, just online, and been studying together. That's been lots of fun. Oh, that shouldn't have animated. I don't do animations in slide decks. Constraints. So this is my view of the sky at home. Ooh. Right, yeah. So you can kind of get why I don't do much HF. I don't get broadcast FM inside without an external antenna. I have found the spot in the kitchen. I can put a Baofeng and hear RBV. Yeah. What I do have, an extensive home network, 4 VLANs running across it. A bunch of hardware phones, a bunch of handies, internet speed. Yeah. They're the things I can work with. Doesn't mean I don't do radio, and well, Ray will recognise these photos. We put a squid pole up in Victoria Park a couple of weeks ago for CQ Pride contest. And Rafi, that suggestion of that little USDX, that's so much fun, that radio. Like everything you need in one little box, recharge, take it out, throw up a squid pole, you're on HF. So QUINN VK Park is the only place I can do HF from near home. Now, other projects I have going on at home. So Matt had asked me originally to speak about FreeDMR. I said I don't want to be the FreeDMR folk. So this talks about everything I've done, not just FreeDMR. There'll be a whole section of DMR coming up. But yeah, Stratum 1 time server coming straight off GPS and PBS backed. ADSB, Digi-repeater played with. My spot's not the best for it, again, we've seen. Back telephone and lots of interoperability, and I'll talk more about some of that interoperability soon. Sometimes radio looks different. So this is what a lot of my radio looks like. We've got a DMR dashboard, we have a web-based DMR client, we have also a dashboard, and we have an Echolink client there. That's what a lot of my radio looked like, especially before I found DMR. A lot of it was very much computer-based. Until I found DMR and started using more DMR on a handy.
Is that a software DMR or a hardware?
A lot of it was software DMR.
Impressive.
Now, some of the reasons... Too many wires here. Some of the reasons I encourage DMR... We're going to have some arguments over spectral efficiency here, but 2 channels for the price of 1 essentially. So that's why I'm going to include that one. Reasonable handsets. Let's not talk about how these ones particularly sound, right, Matt? It's still radio, right, at the end of the day. And a lot of the internet-connected stuff, and this is a point I want to make, is internet kind of came around and changed a lot of things for a lot of people. It's still a reliable form of communication, and I think it's one that we are okay to include more in radio.
Sorry, Jared, I'm getting some comments that we can't see what's below the laptop that's blocking your text. Do you want to just move the laptop just...
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
That way.
Is that okay?
Better?
Let me have a look myself, you know.
Just spin it around the other way.
I can see it there on the middle screen. So is that better?
A bit further over.
Yeah, we're getting thumbs up. I'm getting
There
thumbs
we
up.
go.
It would be easier to move yourself.
Is your camera still working?
Yeah, and I've still got me in shot if I move there.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a lot more of the TV in shot now, but that's okay. It'll just be an image.
No,
It'll
it
be
looks
image.
much
It'll be
better.
very Inception.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is why I encourage DMR. Now, there's a lot of reasons not to as well. I wanted to avoid going too much into a battle of codecs and technologies tonight. I just want to talk about the radio I'm doing. So yeah, these are the reasons I like it. There's a lot of reasons not to, and we'll cover those in... Got the wrong screen open now. This is one of the reasons. The customer said I sound like a robot. Well, you don't always sound like a robot. You do out of these guys. You definitely do out of these guys, largely because the codec's done in software, as Matt pointed out to me the other night, and why I sounded terrible compared to you two. But it also can sound pretty good. And it does matter. It does matter what device you're using. It matters if you're doing software. It matters what software you're using. It matters how that's set up. There's a lot to that side of it as well. Now, I wanted to specifically talk about codecs here. And one of the problems I have with DMR was that a decision was made by committee once upon a time, and they're always the worst kind of decisions, no offense to those folks who serve on committees, but decision by committee is never a good idea, and despite having an open specification for the entire protocol, they chose a codec that was patented to utilize. So the AMBI2 Plus codec is patented. We have 3 more years left on patent, Matt? Is that right? Yep, 3 more years left on patent, and then we can have some fun. I would love to see more M78 codec 2 on top of DMR stack. I think that would be amazing, being an open codec, but you know, it's what's out there, it's what's supported by the ecosystem and the infrastructure and the hardware and the radios, so it's kind of what we're stuck with for now. I'm looking forward to it being patent-free because I think we can do a lot more interesting things with it in software once we do. I have a whole talk on the air interface, the repeater link interfaces, the entire stack on a really deep technical level that I am halfway through doing. I've only done half the research myself, but part of it was understanding all of this technology when I did it. So hopefully in 2 to 3 months I can come back and give a full tech deep dive into like how DMR works completely. That's part of the plan anyway. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about getting on DMR. Do I need a Pi? Not if you're on a DMR network and you're doing radio, not if you've got any other Linux or Windows infrastructure at home. In fact, the Pi is probably the worst way to do DMR, a Pi Star. The software is terrible, it's bloaty, the configuration tool's horrible. The tool set it sits on top of though, Jonathan's MMDVM stack, brilliant. So yeah, it's a map tools. I recommend this one, the DMR only hotspot, which is a very basic Linux install. You edit the config files by hand, you run it, it works. It runs on my main Linux server at home, so accurate clock, highly important for DMR. Jittering on a Pi's internal clock can get terrible, especially on Orange Pis and other even cheaper Pis. Their internal clocks are just jittery, so DMR gets jittery on them. Actually, on that note, for those who don't know, DMR is based on TDMA, so time-based multiplexing, so your clock is heavily important there. So I'm assuming a lot of knowledge for the basic stuff for DMR here as well, but I was asked tonight to talk about free DMR specifically and why that exists and what we do differently. So you've probably heard the ads I've had on the news, basically, well, not ads, the stories about DMR on the news that we put out when I first became sysop for Australian free DMR. You probably heard somewhere out there about people using it. You might have been wondering what it is and how to get there. So we're an open, distributed, autonomous network. Every one of our country servers is completely independent. At at the moment, I'm the only one who makes the decisions for Australia. If someone came up tomorrow and said, I want to run a server as well in 3DMR, it would be them and I who make the decisions. It's as simple as that. Like, it's the network won't stop you running your own. That's fraught with issues too, but you know, as a general whole, we get along pretty well. It's a very 61 national servers now, and active, very active group. The sysops chat daily across the world. We're all in internet chat. We talk through problems. We do interesting things together. We develop our systems more. A large part of that has been teaching and learning. So I've been bringing a lot of my traditional enterprise IT skills, how to run transcode in containers in the cloud, how to run this stuff at scale better, how to help handle network congestion and whether it's CPU contention versus memory contention on servers and things like that. It's and I've been learning lots more about radio modes. So that's been a really good info exchange with the worldwide group of sysops. Now, what we do different to folks like VK3AML or Brandmeister, they are, and don't get me wrong, they're both brilliant in their own right, but they're networks for communications. They're not networks for experimentation. That's where we differ. This allows DMR experimentation. So I've been building SMS services, building code that actually decodes SMS messages out of DMR and does interesting things with them in the back end. So we're building some, along with the folks who do HP LinkNet, we're building some tighter integrations into FreeDMR with the new SMS services they're starting to build. Some more experimentation with DAPRS. DAPRS can get weird. But again, we're building some interesting things. The BBS services are one thing I find interesting.
Why can it get weird? Why does the digital
each radio manufacturer seems to slightly differ the way they do a DAPRS. So we can't decode packets from this radio right now. I'm working on that one. This one seems to think the first packet is the third and then counts backwards out of the 5 and gets negative numbered packets when it tries to reassemble and then just falls over in a heap. So that's the software we're trying to fix around that stuff at the moment.
We as in who?
So we are as in the HP Link guys. So they're the guys writing, writing HP Net, which is the next generation of the HP Link repeater DMR interface software. I guess Matt is the best way to describe that. And along with that, it's Simon G7RZU is his call. He's the lead developer. Oh, G7RZU, that's right, yeah. He's the lead developer of the FreeDMR fork of HP Link. So I'll talk more about what we do differently in our fork. I think I've got a slide coming up in a moment. Yeah. So first, what's on the network? Well, I said we like to experiment and we allow experimentation. So one thing we attracted very early onto the network was other digital video voice groups. So here you have Western New York Digital, you have Digital Voice New Zealand, and you have Ansel who already did an Echo Link network. Now, some of their existing network links and bridges were incompatible with what Brandmeister allows and definitely incompatible with what VK3AML or anybody else would allow. So when they wanted a DMR service added to their infrastructure, they decided on FreeDMR because we allow those kind of bridges.
May I ask exactly what are they restricted from doing compared to FreeDMR?
Well, so on Brandmeister, if you have a link to FreeDMR, you're out. They will cut off your link and not tell you.
Okay.
That's just policy.
On VK3AML, no links are allowed. You're not allowed any experimentation whatsoever. It will cut you off.
After the patent expires, will that stop, do you think?
No. And I think, and Matt can probably speak more to the philosophy of the VK3AML folk, but I get what they're doing. Like, I love a network. I can roam city to city, use the same talk groups on the same radio and have it work, and it's consistent across. And I know it's not, it's a working network. But one of the first things that happened when I got licensed was I started playing with DMR, and I got a warning from this one that I shouldn't be playing with VK3AML. Well, this one created a monster. So yeah, you can blame Matt for this, for letting me know that I was playing in the wrong places, which was great. You know, I needed to know that, and I wouldn't have known it otherwise. I would have gone, oh, amateur radio is for playing.
You would have known what to catch off.
Yeah, I would have known. Yeah, would have known when my DMR stopped working.
And what gives these groups, or what separates them? Are they experimenters that would like to go beyond the DMR?
For all of these groups, absolutely. So this one's a weird one, the Zombie Alert Network. But they actually,
as the name says,
they run a full Wires X and repeater network across the US somewhere, and they have their nets, and I haven't listened much, but it's definitely on the network. They're very active. Digital Voice New Zealand, I have a lot to do with. So not long after I joined FreeDMR as a sysop, ZL2RO brought the Digital Voice New Zealand group in as well. We now share bridges, so all the talk groups for Australia are on XLX 299 for their reflector. They're also on M17, they're also on, yeah, we'll talk more.
New Zealand have a very similar system to VK3AML in that their links repeaters are incredibly locked down, and if you touch them or fiddle with them, they have a sysop that will just cut you off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these guys are sort of a free DMR, you know, they're an alternative to that.
Now, we always have something on. That's my calendar of news and nets on my talk groups.
you do work for a living, I trust.
Yeah, I listen a lot. I don't key up that much. So yeah, I will have a radio on listening to probably about this chunk of the day.
Yeah.
There's some great, actually right now, I think going on, this one here, the King Arthur Roundtable Net, which is actually on the VK3 linked repeater network. That's a really heavily technical, very interesting net every week. And we'll talk about some of the things they talked about last week later too. I keep on jumping ahead of myself. But yeah, we have a fairly, now this is ANZEL combined with some of the stuff that I automated play out. So we do automated play out of every VK news service on a talk group dedicated for news and rag chews. So 5050 is VK News, Nets and Rag Chews, and that is, these purple ones are basically VK News replays. And we do VK2 on Tuesdays because the MP3's never up for me any earlier. Anyone?
Don't look at me, don't do Eric. I'll tell Matt.
Matt's the...
Not me, the other Matt.
Yeah, the other Matt. Matt with 1 T, not Matt with 2 T.
That's right.
Yeah. So we did end up taking, we ditched VK2 for that reason. We take the ANZEL live on Sunday nights now. So we get Dural live on talk group 50556 on a Sunday night with callbacks taken by VK3HJQ. I assume they get into Dural eventually. If my name's on the list for the last month or two, then they've definitely gotten in. So some of the things that differ on other DMR networks as well from a user point of view. Every hotspot's a master. There's no dictation about what talk group goes to which time slot or whatever. You specify what talk groups you want where always. TGIF have a single talk group per time slot policy. You can have 10. Like, if that's what you want to push down your radio, you won't get content if something's already on that time slot. But you can monitor a heap of stuff that way. Dialer talk groups, super handy, no changes to code plug, just make a private call, dial a number, and that talk group's connected to talk group 9 on your master. So nobody else hears it, unlike talk group 9 on, say, VK Multi or something. That's your talk group 9, so you get that link on your talk group, which is the same way our power works. Dialer node's kind of handy. We can key up on a private call, dial a ASL node number, an all-star node number, say VK2ROT, ROT 5462, I can't remember. Yeah. You could dial that and that would connect up to talk group 50599 for you. Likewise, all of my talk groups for VK and some of the special interest ones have all-star nodes attached as well. So you could key up on ROT and dial that node number and be on DMR. This is part of the interoperability. VK FM Repeater Hub is a new thing I'm playing with, which is a dedicated talk group for anyone who wants to ad hoc link all-star linked repeaters into it. So if they want a DMR talk group for their net or something, they can just join it. There's no rules on joining it. If it gets busy, I'll start putting a schedule up. Yeah. But yeah, And as I
Can
say,
I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
So we're talking about talking to your own hotspot.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Is it the next slide even?
Oh wow.
No, it's not quite. I've talked about the stack actually. So it runs the FreeDMR server project on all our master servers. It is a fork of HB linked to Homebrew Repair Protocols DMR master server. It is a fork for a few reasons. We've enhanced the open bridge. So one of the architectures of FreeDMR is no one dictates who I connect to as Australia. I chose Hamburg, Switzerland, and New Zealand. Well, they were the sysops that came up first when I went, I need bridges. Hamburg came up first. New Zealand came up after me, so I offered him a bridge saying, hey, we should be doing stuff together. And because of that, we're a mesh network with no top-down topology. We get traffic collisions, we get, so we've enhanced our bridge protocol between masters to detect collisions, to better handle duplicate call IDs, all kinds of things. It didn't mean it broke, which software was it? DroidStar on certain Androids because they reuse the stream ID for every call, and our collision detection just goes, you keyed up 2 minutes ago, go away. We're working with them to fix that. I think we fixed it in a few places, but again, that's part of that. We're working with the developers of DroidStar, with the developers of MMDVM host, with, I'm in almost daily contact with N4IRS and N4IRR, who are the DV switch guys, who do MMDVM bridge, analog bridge, IAX bridge. There's a whole suite of various bridging software there, and the software they're doing is brilliant. Like I can, without, some of the best hand software I've come across actually comes from those two. I can drop in a button on a website pretty easily and pull a PCM feed out of their bridge and have it play without using Broadcastify, without another transcode step to MP3, without any of those things. I can just play via WebSocket. There it is, PCM stream.
Bear in mind that we're not all DMR specialists, so bring
sorry.
up a term.
Yeah.
Please define exactly what that term is.
Which term was that
We
one?
don't really.
What did you first say after the second word?
The one after the.
So we have a slowly growing user base. Did catch one user up on the UK server recently and had a word to them. They've now got a bridge. That's Matt, by the way. Not sure if he was sneaking around checking out FreeDMR without me knowing, but I found him connected to the UK server, and I'm like, hang on, there's one in Sydney next to you.
I just couldn't be bothered changing it.
Fair enough.
The girl's got a question.
Go for it.
I'm not looking at screens.
Question from Zoom?
The girl.
What? No messages.
Well, he was holding up his hand.
Apparently there's a raised hand.
Big
on Zoom.
Al. Big Al is holding up his hand.
Oh, go ahead, Al. No hands up.
I don't think he meant to do that. Continue.
I've already talked a little bit about building bridges. None of them are as spectacular as my QSL card bridge, but we try anyway.
Beautiful.
I might have some paper copies of that here. So
That cruise ship, is that COVID free?
It's a ship, Raffy. They're very serious.
It's not the review print.
So I took that photo walking to work one day in 2017. So
Oh,
before
yeah,
COVID.
COVID free.
Yeah, I was from Circular Key.
So what? Wait a minute. Go back to DV. What was that about? So DV switch with emulate transcode scale.
Yes. So for all the list of bridges. There is I was going to put them in a slide, but it was like D-Star, XLX, D-Star, M17, YSF, All-Star, Echo Link here. Like, it was just getting a messy
For the
slide.
people who don't understand what you're saying, what he means is you can transmit in one mode and get received in various other modes. It's transcoding.
Yes, so and that's analog to digital and digital to digital and analog to analog and even analog to VoIP. I did mention in one of my early slides those hardware phones. I monitor ROT from one of those phones regularly. All right, that's the kind of radio I do. I dial the All-Star node number from my phone for ROT, and then I hit star 99 to PTT.
Mobile phones are radio.
It is, exactly right. And most of the internet is too these days. And part of where the future of radio is going, well, we're about to live on the moon for permanent occupation, right?
Maybe you.
At the end of this decade, we start permanent occupation, so, yeah.
Under it, not on it. Too much radiation.
Well, yes, again.
Can I just send Musky Boy there?
Go Ray, GPU?
There, away from us.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I've actually seen on the Discord mentioning, and I just spotted emulated transcode here, and I've seen like running, like an Android emulator, is it?
No, not quite.
Or similar, and I've been wondering,
so that's
why the hell you're emulating it? Is that because of the patenting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's an ARM processor.
Yeah.
And they put, as Matt was telling me the other night, they put the DBIS chip in here to do the transcode, but they didn't buy a license for it, so they did it in software. We actually, as a community, lifted the firmware off these radios, and we emulate these radios in the cloud to do that transcode.
And you haven't been sued yet?
Yeah.
They don't care.
You can edit that
The
out.
patent's about to go, and yeah.
Just through QUINN, you're right?
They don't like people using their logo, right? And they don't like, there's a few things they don't like, but if they don't know that it,
If you do get a box and put, 25 ambi chip sticks in it, it sounds a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah.
Because the emulation that they're copying is just bad.
Yes. Yeah. It's what gives DMR that robotic annoyance that
When
most
the
people
patent
hate.
expires, someone will just copy that. Someone will rewrite that code from scratch in assembler or something, and it will be
fly. Yeah.
There's existing efforts out there I've seen little snippets of that can't release it yet.
Is it the I guess the modulation or demodulation side that causes the or is it both?
It's both.
It's a tokenization of voice, surely.
Yeah. I'll finish and I'll give you a rundown of how the code
We've got half
works.
an hour,
It's
so
interesting.
that's it.
What hard were you on the other night on 777 when we were chatting, Matt?
Anytime. 878.
So Matt sounded like he was in the room and the audio was just immaculate. He did not have any of that edge robotic. It might for someone who wants high fidelity CD quality or something, but it sounded, dare I say, as good as FM.
It's not as good as P25. It's not
There we go.
Yeah.
So I did mention before we have the replay of nets and news and various things. Look, Mark, there's RF too.
Oh, shock.
So we've got 3 repeaters on 3DMR Australia at the moment.
Oh.
This is kind of exciting now. This is only just been starting to
that was
happen.
my comment, yes.
Big shout out to Bayside District Amateur Radio Society. They put an experimental club repeater on the network. I think they're bringing in Brandmeister on one time slot and us on the other. Yeah. Now, they were originally just a Brandmeister repeater, I think. They found somewhere else.
There are alternatives. Yep.
And hi, because they probably watch this too. So VK4MCU and folks, big shout out to you. The other 2 are privately just folks with repeater licenses rather than club repeaters. But my buddy Tony, who'll come up a few times in here, VK3JED, famous for his Echo IRLP or whatever it was called. So he's responsible for that stuff, the Echo Link IRLP bridging software.
Fantastic.
And GP, VK2RGP up in my old stomping ground hometown of Newcastle. Don't know who they are actually. They've still not spoken to me, these the people running this one, but we're a free network. If you want to put a repeater on, go for it. You don't even have to ask to put a repeater on. So we also do some VoIP. So I've talked earlier about my hardware phones. I love using them for monitoring. They're wired. They work. They have reasonable audio, and I can dial radio things and listen. So
all about a landline here?
Define landline, but we haven't had POTS for a long time.
Just to interject, this is VK3AML with regular Saturday night test transmission. We'll be going live at 11 p.m, which is in 13 minutes' time. VK3AML. Back to Jared, VK2WAY. And I must say, it is jargon city when you get into digital communications, but for those who are prepared to listen through, you are getting the lowdown on the cutting edge stuff. So thank you, Jared. Back to Jared. QUINN VK2WAY.
Yes, it's NBN, yeah.
It looks
like a landline. Yeah. It's a pretend landline.
Well, yes. So I run Asterix at home, pure Asterix, not All-Star. I run 12 inbound lines because my buddy runs a massive VoIP wholesaler. I asked for a Sydney number and he said he's 10 consecutive ones. So I run like an emulator of the old talking clock on 028,000 8828. I run a computer readout of my weather station at home on 8000 8827. I run my main in-dial on 8000 8822. These have numbers that you can dial from Sydney as well. They're not published because these are, well, especially that one. That one doesn't actually, the News does. Yeah, News does. This one doesn't because there's RF links and PSTN to RF is a bad idea just for licensing. We want to try to ensure that folks at least getting on the air have licenses if we can stop them elsewhere. It doesn't have to be this or that. Why not both? DMR Gateway is an excellent bit of kit. You don't have to run your own DMR master to be on multiple networks. You can use Gateway and define up to 5 of them, I think, now, and then rewrite talk groups. So your 9505 might be 505 VK, your 8505 might be...
Transcoding as well?
On the Gateway, no, PyStar does not do transcode.
Right.
PyStar, you put a DMR radio on, or a YSF radio, or a M17, any of the things PyStar. Now, I don't do those modes, so I can't speak for those modes, but yeah.
It will translate talk group numbers, that's it.
Yeah.
And time slots, or something. If you put it.
So yeah, basically routing between your local talk group number and which network and time slot and talk group
you
you want.
transcoding, you win. Yeah.
All of them have like a
Now, if you
505.
setting up your own routing sounds too hard, just use VK Multinet. I do. That's how I get into every other than pre-DMR. That's how I do Brandmeister and VK. When I'm out and about, I do VK from the radio. But I'm at home, again, RCG, I can get pretty well, actually, from home on the DMR, but BB, no chance at all on FM. So yeah, I do use VK Multi when I'm at home, just so I've got Brandmeister and VK. I think you're only carrying 505 from FreeDMR at the moment.
No, I've got a few more now.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I know folks were asking you for
someone asked
more.
me if I put them all on. I don't know. Don't ask me what they are, but
So we're just shuffling calls around. What the people listen to is their thing, right?
That's right.
Got a hotspot already? Just pick me from the list. It's that simple. Yeah, FreeDMR Australia is listed. You pick it from the standard PyStar dashboard. You're connected. So not long after finding DMR, I had a QSO with Kilo Juliet 7, Oscar Mike Oscar Kimberly, who, if anyone listens to ROT on a Sunday afternoon, you would have heard her.
Yeah.
She hosts our net on the Pride group.
Yeah.
And VK3AML, who I've mentioned already, he ran a bunch of VoIP and RoIP infrastructure already for Ansel and other networks. He's also, as I said, Echo IRLP and VK who I think he ran on Echo Link for a while.
Very famous call sign.
Plenty of
He's
things.
been around for a long time.
Yes. He had this idea, let's build a multi-mode hub network using USRP. So USRP is the GNU Radio Universal Simple Radio Protocol. We got on that. So that's everything that GNU Radio supports, which is any radio pipeline you can imagine pretty much. You can build in that. He proposed using its uncompressed PCM audio at the core of our network. So we actually carry across a 3-node hub, uncompressed audio across the top for the Pride Radio group. And then I look after the DMR side of things. Kimberly looks after Yaesu, Echo Link, P25, M17, NXDN. Tony had some IRLP and other things in there as well.
Oh, God.
So this is what's actually connected to ROT on a Sunday afternoon for our net.
Wow.
Which is why you'll often hear us, this time I'm coming in M17, this time I'm doing this time I'm doing this. And why most of the net is actually a technical discussion about making some part of this work.
It works very well.
Club operates 3 call signs, VK3PRG, V3PRG, and VI 2022 Pride. You may have heard someone use those sometimes. I think there's 3 members of the Pride Radio group in this room. I'm not going to name them. This is what the club gets up to though. So I want to talk about the Pride group. Now this is where I deviate from FreeDMR. We are a proper radio club, 268 members worldwide. The oldest I could find in the last week was 50-something, in his early 50s. The average membership has got to be late 20s. 260 radio operators around the world in their late 20s to early 30s. Mostly gamers, mostly tech folk. But you may have come across this project or these calls, VK3LAT and PatPat. So that's a packet BBS package system software that's been around forever. It's pretty cool. They're responsible for that. Sound Hub and Radio Son, have you come across those ones? Okay, so members of our club are behind both of those products. Yep. The cool stuff they're doing at the moment is the new stuff to support amateur balloon launches and tracking with a whole extended tool set around amateurs who are launching balloons worldwide. So they're doing really cool stuff.
That's getting a bit of traction at the moment.
It's going to get a lot of traction, yeah. We've got a bunch of VEs. I couldn't get an answer today on how many we've got in Australia. Do we know if we've got any? I don't know if we have any. We've got a bunch in the UK and US that you can do your license through the Pride Club now. A lot of SSTV. They love SSTV. There's SSTV everywhere. In fact, if you get rickrolled on 20 metres, that's probably us.
Wow, okay.
So the next generation of radio does look different. And I think that's what my closing point is going to be. There's going to be a lot more merging of internet and radio. We're all interested in satellite comms. We are all interested, and most of us are doing a lot of HF too. Like I sit there most of the day on Discord and I see whisper reports from folks. I see HF ban conditions from folks, especially there's a small group within the club that are heavy HF users, whereas there's Omo, Jed and myself who are all very digital voice users. We'd love to do one of our next projects actually coming up is doing a SSTV HF to digital gateway.
Free DV.
This is more picking up HF SSTV in one city and relaying it on, say, 70 centimetres in another. Yeah. So using the internet as a middle medium for SSTV as well.
Yeah.
That's only because there's so much SSTV that goes on, and you'll see a lot of Pride SSTV. So yeah, I know I've missed other stuff that we're behind and stuff, but I only had 2 days to go. Hey folks, anyone got projects that I should shout out? And no one answered, so I only did the ones I could think of.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we are very active. The Discord, how many hundred messages a day? Yeah, too many.
And where did the Pride group start?
Oh, yes, sorry, I should. VK3FUR, it's an Aussie group, primarily out of Australia. Most members are Aussie, I think. Again, I did ask Michaela, VK3FUR, for stats on this. We don't collect anything other than what's legally required as a club for privacy concerns. So we didn't have an average age of members. We didn't have, we did have a pronoun breakdown from the robot that runs in the Discord channel, and that's only people who told the robot what they wanted. Yeah.
Okay.
My philosophy on radio, finally. I've been building the things in radio I want to do and opening them for people to use. If they want to use them, go for it. If they don't, give me a signal report, move on. Projects and people I'm tracking. Well, I mentioned M17 a lot. I'm really excited to see what happens here, but until we see repeaters, hardware radios with M17 built in, it's not going to gain traction. I have another Redibus on the way that I intend to put firmware on for M17 just so I've got hardware, but it needs some more. SatNogs, really interesting project.
In what sense do you monitor SatNogs?
No, so I'm tracking it. If I had the Skyview, I would have built a rotator. Right. So it's on my radar of things I want to do. This is more the projects in radio that are exciting me. I wish I could do SatNogs, but with my balcony situation, being a ground station at my place is not worth it. If I convince the boss to do one on Flinders Street, then yes.
Have you got a SatNogs running, Tony?
No, I've dealt with them an awful lot.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I was interested.
It's always the university.
You can always give him access to your SatNogs receiver and you can collaborate.
When it's operating.
Well, that's why I mean by collaborate.
Now, it's a good thing this is a new slide deck too, because about a week ago, two crazy lads introduced me to this concept called new packet radio, and I'm obsessed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a proprietary, it's open source.
It is open source.
Yeah, but there's only just one, or initially it's just
It's one
a very
developer.
small handful of developers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken a really
that's
solid.
interesting.
I've taken a really solid look at the hardware required for the modem, and it is so simple. I want to add a filter on it and get like 10 boards done in China sent over. So I think you mentioned you wanted.
Why in China? Have it done here?
Is someone going to do the pick and place for me? I'm not going to
Oh,
solve
they're
it.
dispersed all over the place, but
I will, but
tweezers, magnifying glass.
But not SMT. I stopped SMT years ago for that reason. Other people do it better. Shortwave Australia VK3AML's project. Does everyone know what that's about?
Nope.
Shortwave Australia has acquired two of the former ABC HF frequencies, 2310 and 4835. They have a domestic HF broadcast license.
Wow.
They are now operating Shortwave Australia, as he calls it, and that's VK3AML. Now, what I love about this project is it's an amateur who's taken those skills and are now doing broadcast HF as they
What's the
think.
content? What's the content?
So it's music from one of the guys, one of the VK3ZH. He recorded a bunch of music over years, I think it was, and that's been played out. It's
whatever he's got.
Yeah. But I can see that as being a very interesting opportunity. So his license allows him 5 kilowatts on those two frequencies. Wow. Yeah.
310, 48, what is the other? 48,
Sorry,
what's the second frequency?
4835.
483.
Yeah.
aren't those towers still leased out to the overseas broadcast?
The towers are, but the frequencies were up. Yeah. So the story goes, and I've heard this from a few people so far, that he used to work for the ABC, and at a Christmas party he had a run-in with Michelle Guthrie and got up her basically for pulling Radio Australia. And now he's retired, put his money where his mouth is, and doing for a few $100, he says, what they couldn't for 1.2 million. Yeah. Admittedly, he's not doing 5 kilowatts at the moment, he's doing 200 and 100, but he wants to go to 500 at some point in the future. I can just get a copy at my balcony, so it must be pretty good.
Do you know where it's operating out of?
Outback. There's a video up on his YouTube, VK3AML. He's just moved out of central Melbourne, out of the city somewhere, to a rural property as part of this project, and building some interesting things. So the reason that interests me is because it's someone who's taken amateur radio and done something that's not amateur radio with it.
And we'll leave Jared's talk at this stage. Thank you very much, Jared. And for anybody who wants to ask Jared about any aspect, particularly of digital radio, DMR or whatever, he's on our text chat as we speak, and I suspect if I can get Zoom fired up, we've got about a 50% chance we might get that going in about a quarter of an hour's time after I listen on 147.475 for any calls there. It's 11 p.m. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima with a regular Saturday night test transmission, and for the last 40 minutes odd, you've been listening to Jared Quinn, VK2WAY, who's been very closely associated, of course, being a younger person. I think he's under 40. He was brought up with computers, unlike most of the people of my generation to whom computers don't come as second nature. Jared obviously got very deeply into it. The only problem with computers for people of my age is that a lot of it is three-letter acronyms which mean a lot to people within the computer industry, but I would have to sit here with a dictionary on my lap to get through all of the acronyms, but I'm finding what I'm hearing in the way of codec 2 and the various digital speech codecs and the means of decoding them with intelligent decoders is improving from year to year, and although what I hear of D-Star is still pretty crappy and Fusion only a little bit better, the best of the decode examples I've heard from David Rowe, VK5, I forget, DRG, I think, has been really impressive. So it's a watch this space situation. I have no doubt that with the noise problems most metropolitan hams have, that digital speech transmission will eventually be the answer for a lot of it. Overcoming noise, overcoming selective fade on HF, static crashes and all the rest of it. So with that being said, let's I'll just check that my mixing's right. I'll change over my monitoring from an off-air monitor to the mixer so I can hear what's going in. So this is VK3AML now calling CQ on 147.475 and standing by for any calls.
Yeah, VK3ACZ.
We have VK3ACZ, and incidentally, Peter, I see we've got Dave, VK3CG, listening in from the old Dart, listening in from UK tonight and looking in. We have quite a number of people on the stream. I think there's 22 at the moment. And Ardren, nice to see you there. Terry FTJS, as always. Mick Maxwell, 3ADD is there. Who else have we got here? Jared, of course, who's just given us the lecture that he very kindly allowed me to run from his Waverley Radio Club, Sydney-based Radio Club presentation of a few weeks back. Apologies for the audio quality. I tried to auto-correlate out as much of the room echo as I could and flatten the frequency response to get rid of standing wave comb filtering effectively of the audio. But there's only so much you can do with a recording taken off a handycam that's some distance away from the speaker. But a very interesting presentation, Jared, from a completely different point of view to what most amateur radio lectures are, particularly concerning itself with codec experimentation and digital audio in narrow bandwidths. So let's go over to Peter, VK3ACZ. What have you been up to, Peter? I will give Zoom a try. I'm not very hopeful. My computer number 2, for some strange reason, deleted its audio software earlier tonight. I had to do a system restore. God knows why that happened. But chances are that we might get picture with no sound or sound with no picture on Zoom. It'll be interesting to see what Dave looks like under the broad sunlit early afternoon of England if he comes on. But let's hand it over to you, VK3ACZ and group VK3AML.
Yeah, just left a little pause there. VK3AML. This is VK3ACZ returning. Good evening, Chris. Well, what an action-packed broadcast. Oh, hang on, I should also say good morning, Dave, over there in England. 1407 over there at the moment, or similar. I was on the long path to Europe this afternoon, and I didn't get anybody from the old G country, but I spoke to an Echo Alpha and a French station who both talked about the heat that they've been having. Hopefully, Dave, you're a lot cooler than that over there. But on to tonight's broadcast. What an action-packed one it was too. Bob Heil. What a character. And a brilliant turn of phrase he had too. Loved how he said, you'll find out how loud 3dB isn't. And yes, all the processing stuff and all that. What a fantastic lecture. I'm going to listen to that again, probably more than just one more time too. I spend a lot of time listening to other stations being told by others again that there's something wrong with their audio and that they need to put in more processing here or change that frequency response there and all that sort of stuff. And I think to myself in horror that, hey, their audio sounds perfect and they're being told there's something wrong with it. So I know it's a particularly personalised thing sometimes, but he came up with some wonderful examples, and I was so glad I was actually listening. I was watching on the screen and putting up with the delay, but also listening on my Yaesu FTM 200, which has better audio quality than my phone. So I was able to hear what he was demonstrating much better. To Jared, pleased that he gave a reference or a mention to the King Arthur Roundtable Net on the RBA repeater link system on Wednesday nights at 2000 hours local time, run by VK3WAY short. Just threw in a bit of my own plug there. I'm a regular contributor to that, and I realise Jared is too. Anyway, the only other business of note, solar flux is on the rise, Chris. During the week I was able to get to Namibia on the long path with the centre-loaded whip and magnetic base on my car and 5x5 both ways, 20 metres. Very happy with that. I've been having a wonderful time on 20 just with the magnetic base. You wouldn't think it would be all that good. It can't be a super efficient antenna. But I got to Cape Verde Islands, had to look them up in the atlas to see where they were. I didn't actually know that they're off the Central African coast there in the Atlantic. Rather pleased about that. Been listening to the shortwave broadcast on 4835. I find that comes in better here than the 2310. And there's also somebody playing music on 1865, and I thought it would have been simulcast in the same thing, but it seemed to be somebody else. I didn't have the chance to hang around and find out who was doing that musical broadcast. But otherwise, I hope you and Prue are well. I mentioned to you in an email during the week how our radio club meeting went on Monday night. That's enough for me for this round. Hopefully somebody else will come to join us, but pleased to know that David is listening. VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
VK3ACZ and presumably group VK3AML. I actually have now a Zoom meeting open, but I have absolutely no idea as to how to tell people to join it. At the moment it has only me on there. Probably people can see the screen across the other side here. More. Let's just see. Show chat previews, chat alt plus H. Reactions. Well, I'm up there as Chris Long, but I'm not quite sure exactly what I have to give people in the way of details. Oh yes. The numeric passcode, participant ID, that's my ID, 675528. My participant ID is 675528. And the passcode, I'll just type into the text chat here. Capital J3 VP5T, unless I'm mistaken. So I can't see any copy link, invite link. The trouble is I can't copy and paste from one computer to the other. Click on participants and then invite. Where is participants? Invite. VK3ND invite. Okay, I've done that. And I can only see 3ND on there at the moment. And we've got 3ND. Hello, Greg.
Hello, mate.
You're looking slightly canine.
Canine.
Your dog.
Let me turn the Let me mute you on the TV.
Okay.
You're running too late on the TV, and let me find a camera. How do I turn the camera on?
Okay. We're
Let's
about to
switch the
see
picture
Greg 3ND, and I've got a little tripod here so I can bring the camera closer. If only I can see where I've dropped it.
Yeah. There it is. Why, because you're in that mode.
Where did I put the
You want some
tripod?
light, I suppose.
Hang on, I'll try and bring this camera closer. Let's just have a look here.
Just to upset your show, Deborah comes home tomorrow, so she's been in hospital for 6 weeks. So
Oh my goodness.
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because I've got my daughter's 2 dogs here, so I've got 4 dogs at the moment.
Okay, I'll just try and put this camera on top of my modem. The trouble is it's whiting out. It needs to be higher. Here we are. Let's just see now. People watching the stream are going to feel like they're on a very choppy boat. And I'll just try and get this wire out of the way and turn that around. And okay, we have something approaching a stream, if only I can get it level. Okay, I hope people can see there. I'm rebroadcasting you, Greg, and so if anybody else wants to come in on this, let's just see if I can invite somebody else. Copy invite link. How did you get in? How did you get in, Greg?
Well, you were calling for people, so I just went into my Zoom and clicked on your name on my Zoom.
Okay, well, presumably that means that Rolly from last week will be able to get in on this. So my channel is under the name Chris Long, presumably. Is that what you saw when you came in?
It says meeting topic is Chris Long's Zoom meeting.
Okay, so look for Chris
right.
Long's Zoom meeting, and we'll be able to bring in other people.
Apostrophe at the end.
Indeed. Can't see anybody else at the moment. I would have thought that Rolly would be trying, but anyway, maybe it's too late over there. I'll just look at the text on the other one. That meeting ID seems wrong. Okay. So people are trying to get in but can't, Greg. Didn't know that free DMR was a thing. Looks awesome. Great to see a network being built to allow true DMR experimentation.
I did like his free DMR. I'd be interested to know how I can get that on my hotspot. My Pi Star.
Well, maybe Jared can come in on this talk if he can find my Zoom stream, because we're running Zoom and live stream simultaneously. I should bring this a bit closer to the screen, just so that I get this a bit larger. Sorry about the video quality, but that's about the best I'll do. You're sideways, Greg.
What did it do?
And my ratio is wrong, but then that's a function of the new video card.
You're sideways and I'm square.
Just hang on a sec. I've got too much.
Changed all these buttons.
Just to say, give us a count to 5, Greg. I'm just getting your level right.
I don't know. I'm only a sound person. I can only count to 2. 1, 2.
Careful,
2.
so am I. Anyway, I'll drop off and hand it to Peter VK3ACZ with a pause for any other breakers on 147.475. You've been listening to for the last 5 minutes or so, Greg VK3ND, who's on our Zoom meeting, and I note that people are trying to get in but can't. I've given you the passcode. What else do I have to give here? What else do I have to give here? The numeric passcode or participant ID, which is 675528. You need to give the meeting ID and passcode. Meeting ID. Ah, okay. Meeting ID. I'll type it out. Meeting ID, and I'll hurry this up because we've only got 40 minutes of this free. On a subsequent week, 48473944. I think that's right. I'll just put a colon there to separate it all.
I don't know why I've gone horizontal.
Okay, the meeting ID is 86848473944 for those who are looking in. And I'll just click that off, and we'll see if anybody else is applying to get in. Nobody yet. And there's Greg's dog, who's so interested in what we're doing. The dog is actually sleeping inside a towel by the looks of it. And
No, it's a big woolly dog blanket.
What's his name again?
That's Scruffy.
Scruffy. He looks it too.
You quite often have him up on the one of your videos on YouTube has him. Tom is got him sitting in the lap at San Remo.
Oh right, okay. We've got a reasonable reproduction of the screen. What's that? Something just came up. Hang on. Invite. There's nobody else able to get in as yet. The passcode did not work, but I may not have your user ID. That's my user. Oh, there's a third person. Graham Thomas, VK3GWD, I think. I haven't got any audio from you, Graham.
What does it do there?
Graham's phone is connecting to audio. And standing by. No audio yet, Graham. And there's Rolly. And currently it is 1:19 a.m. in Auckland, so I admire Rolly's guts. Hello, Rolly. How's the wee hours going?
How's that now?
That's better. Graham's phone is connecting to audio.
That's me.
Somebody's... Morning. G'day, Graham. You better turn down the live stream because it's 30 seconds delayed on this and we tend to get a feedback loop going. How are you, Rolly?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Good morning.
Yeah. Are you in dressing gown or something there?
No, it's a jacket, for goodness sake.
Oh, sorry. Oh, dear.
Good grief. What, do you want me to strip these, eh?
No. For heaven's sake.
Oh, okay.
I'll pay you not to.
Oh, okay.
And there's Dave Ranson. Normally we speak to him by radio in Melbourne. You better turn down the live stream because it's 30 seconds delayed on this and we tend to get a feedback loop going. How are you, Rob?
Yep.
No audio yet.
And Dave?
Yeah, well, I'm doing well, thank you. Very good indeed. And so there we be. It's some silly hour of the morning already here, isn't it? What is it? 1:20 in the morning, so normal. Well, that's normal for me.
Hello,
anyway.
Dave. It's nice to see you on stream.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Which part of England are you in?
I'm just in Birmingham, just near Slidell. So, completely swamped by Commonwealth Games, of course.
Oh, okay. I suppose all of the accommodation places would be booked out over there and everything going for twice its normal price or something.
I suspect so. I'm staying with family, so there we are. But it's a very, very bright, sunny, beautiful blue sky. Quarter to what's the time now?
Half your luck.
20 past 2. Yes,
it's been
lovely and warm.
Cold and crap here.
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
Local QRM here is pretty horrible. I tried listening on some shortwave, but it's just like I'm in a sort of an apartment block, and it's just dreadful. So we'll see. I might have a bit of a go when it's a little bit quieter late at night and see what happens.
Okay. Well, the thing I noticed when I listen to web-based SDRs over there is that you here we would hear stuff from interstate, but at interstate sort of 80-metre distances, you hear every language under the sun from Britain.
Yes, that's right. It's sort of Skywave just gives you Europe, if you like, or the near part of Europe.
You get Russian, you get Romanian, you get French, you get German, and it goes on and on and on. So actually finding a conversation in English is not all that easy. It's a little bit easier when your selection on 80 metres consists of Australia or New Zealand, and that's it.
Yes, that's right. Well, I suppose I'm in Callum country, I suppose, because that his Hollywood farm place is probably not far from here. It's probably only about sort of, 5-10 miles away. So yes, I mean that sort of countryside anyway.
Okay. What takes you over there, Dave? Meeting old family?
My family are there. No, my family are there. So I'm staying with mother at the moment, and who's snoozing in an armchair opposite me at the moment.
Yeah, a nice warm. Well, you weren't there on that day when they had 40 degrees in London.
No, I wasn't. So I think next week it's going to have a couple of days in the 30s, which is, that's still unusual for a British summer to have an awful lot of days up in the 30s.
Yeah.
But I think that's that 40 day was something that was one of their sort of records for many, many years. And I think at the moment there's a drought. They're having hosepipe bans, and they're talking about the lowest level of rain in July for 80 years, things like that.
Gosh, yeah. What about you, Rolly?
Fascinating videos tonight. I've had fascinating videos. I enjoyed that.
Right.
I've tried a bit of digital, and with some moderate success, but you've got to keep ploughing at these things and experimenting, and that's what I think is so nice about the idea of having the experimental DMR. I think that's, the other systems eventually become a bit like a switched telephone network in the radio sphere.
I think
whereas
that's what brought Jared into the sort of thing that we're doing here, combining computer and internet in various forms with ham radio, or trying to anyway. My computer knowledge is limited, as must be evidenced by my difficulty in knowing how to open up a Zoom room. But in future weeks, to avoid the 40-minute timeout, I'm going to try connecting to an open source version called Jitsi, Jitsi. I believe it's much easier.
My wife's used that for a lot of her meetings, and there's not the time limitation on it and things like that. And it seems to work perfectly well.
Yeah. I believe also it doesn't require the ridiculous passcodes and all of that sort of palaver.
I think it's much simpler to use. I'm not sure that the compression quality is quite as good, but maybe it is. And my recollection was it wasn't quite as nice an image, but very easy to use and seemed to work every time.
Yes. We've lost 3XOR there. He came on for a little while. I didn't hear anything from him, and I think his mic was muted, so maybe he's gone back to the live stream. But I've now got you via webcam on the live stream. So we're live streaming and zooming at the same time through two computers, and I'm mixing your audio from one to the other. I wish there was a way of screen scraping and doing it all on the one computer, but I fear that if I had all of the stuff going through one sound card, it'd become hopelessly tangled up and impossible to mix. But people are hearing you on 2 metres here in Melbourne. Oh, well, Peter3ACZ can reply to you. I don't know whether I can actually run it through a speaker.
Good afternoon, Peter.
Yeah, Peter, VK3ACZ to take on 2 metres, VK3AML.
Oh, wonderful, Chris. I dropped my pen on the floor and I wanted that passcode, and by the time I found the pen, you haven't repeated it, so I should be able to join the meeting. I'm just got the screen here waiting for the passcode, 3AML, 3ACZ.
I think I printed the passcode up on the live stream somewhere. The passcode figures are 86848473944. So I hope that fixes. Is that okay, Pete?
That's the joining number, isn't it? What's the other one?
That's the ID, meeting ID.
Yeah, the other one is capital J3, small v, small p, 5, large T. That's capital J, figure 3, small v, small p, 5, large T. Have you got that?
Roger. I'm going to attempt to join now.
Okay. Let's see how that goes. This is trying to juggle 2 meters, live stream, Zoom, and keep my mind on a stream of conversation. It's not easy. What's been going on in your life the last week, Graham? It's nice to see you there anyway.
Yeah, you too, Chris, and everybody else as well. Yeah, no, I feel like I need to listen to Jared all over again. There's just so much information in there that, I mean, I think I'm reasonably au fait computer-wise because I worked in that field. I started in amateur radio and went to computers rather than started with computers and went to amateur radio. But, it's fascinating stuff. And it's an eye-opener to see that there's that much activity going on in so many different digital fields, which is really encouraging. And it's a good thing for for that generation, I think, to get them into amateur radio as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in my generation, most people didn't grow up with computers, so we haven't got the level of networking savvy or codec savvy to get... Well, I don't. But young people who've grown up with it and have used a keyboard from primary school, it's a totally different ball game. And I look forward to amateur radio being much more interesting over the next few years as a result of that combination of new talents and new equipment. Let's see if Peter can talk. Have you got us yet, Peter?
Hello, test 1, 2, 3. Yep, sounds like it works.
Okay. There, Peter, but your camera's off, unless you haven't got a camera.
Okay. I'll work on it. Just quickly, I wanted to say to Rolly, I've been enjoying his YouTube. I discovered it during the week, especially the 2 tours he did of ZL3 Sierra Victor's shack. Loved the long wire antenna.
That long wire antenna is certainly a long wire antenna, and when you have to use very heavy equipment like front end loaders and a couple of tractors to pull the thing up and get it up into the tree and then tension it and so on like that. It's something to behold, and then of course I mean it's big and so on like that. But the interesting thing is when you actually sit down in front of the rig and start listening and see what you can hear on the thing, boy, that brings in a whole new ball game altogether. That's for sure. You can literally hear sparrows fart in the morning in Europe. That's for sure on 80 meters.
Yeah. I liked how he said that it was great for Australia and long path to England, but South Africa, forget it.
Well, the problem is a great lump of ice that in the way, for us here in New Zealand, anything into South Africa, anything into Africa full stop is real choice stuff. That's what we dream of. And I still remember, well, this is way back in the 1980s. I put up made a 4-square antenna on 80 meters, and that was unheard of in those days, having a 4-square on 80 meters. And got up every morning at 3 a.m. in the morning for weeks on end. And then just one mystery morning, ZS5LB was there, and we had a QSO. And from there on in, I had to justify this QSO on everybody on 2 meters would come up and say, no, you're dreaming at 3 o'clock in the morning. You got to be dreaming, And then months after I received this cassette recording of our QSO from his end, and Yeah, that was a lot of joy to be able to take that along to the club meeting and say, "Hey guys, I've got something you want to listen to." Snick, play, sit back there with that very smug look on my face. But yeah, it was good fun those days, and that was using a 4-square on 80 meters, and here's Gary doing it on that lump of wire there on a reasonably regular basis, to be honest. Yeah.
Your friend in Christchurch too, who built that linear, I was very much
the same guy.
Yeah,
same guy
in the filing cabinet or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was a good idea. I've seen also. I'm just trying. Peter ZL4LV at Dunedin, I think, has the old sound transmitter from the TV transmitter at Dunedin that he occasionally uses on 6 meters. So there's quite a bit of oomph behind that too. He has
being an ex-broadcast engineer as well as Peter, ZL3SV, I was engineering for one of a very, very large radio TV stations here in New Zealand. And of course, the days have gone when on AM, when you had to have 4-1000s for the final transmitting tubes and so on like that, they were all disassembled or taken out of service, to be honest, many years ago, and replaced with solid state transmitters, 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, and occasional 20 kilowatt solid state transmitter. Yeah. So all these valve transmitters are sitting around. Well, all the valves, we replaced the valves when they got down to about 86-87% of efficiency. We replaced them. Well, an 87% efficient 1 kilowatt tube is fine for amateur radio.
Yeah.
Especially when you get 3 or 4 of them and you bank them, And
there's actually a bit of a subculture in Melbourne on 160 metres of people who get onto AM specifically for its high quality, using massive modulation transformers. Often the modulation transformer is twice the size of the transmitter, as you might gather.
Yeah, indeed.
With big air gaps in them to allow them to work with a bit of unbalanced current in them. And I know a couple
of... Great fun constructing with a hammer to bend the windings on.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a few people do that. I think these days, though, it's more likely you'd be generating the AM at low level and linear amplifying it, which is not as efficient. But the best signals I've heard are people using things like 813's, very old technology.
813 is the driver, no doubt.
Well... Do you want the real story or the one that what people are supposed to hear?
No.
You're allowed to use a lot more power than we are,
You're rebroadcasting this, aren't you?
Well, yes, unfortunately. And we do have a listener who happens to be a radio inspector, and he's enthusiastic about these transmissions so far. But I don't want to push my luck.
Right.
Oh, dear.
He hasn't come for coffee yet.
What's that, Terry?
He hasn't come for coffee yet.
No, I haven't been able to. I mean, what with keeping the 2 meters running, keeping the live stream going, 2 computers, one of which is pernickety, and running it all through the same modem on a dicey NBN. I'm just wondering where the first buffer underrun's going to come from. On a Saturday night, I should imagine a lot of people using our cable for watching cable TV. They must be... We're in an ageing area of Melbourne, an ageing demographic, of which I'm a part, unfortunately. And I think most of them go to bed by this time of night. What is it, 11:36? So fortunately, the internet isn't too bad here. Dave, a question for you in England. Mm-hmm. How does the internet speed over there compare generally with Australia? Is it much better?
Well, I haven't run the speed check here, but one of the things I did for my mother was make sure she had some good broadband, and using one of the major suppliers. I think it's originally a British Telecom supplier, but one of the sort of side companies on that. And that is the optic fibre to the curb, I think, and that's pretty good. So I've not seen any sort of dropouts, no real problems at all with any of the, FaceTime or WhatsApp video or all those things, and YouTube have been running perfectly without any glitches. So it's obviously perfectly adequate. And this is I would imagine quite a few people in this block will be streaming, video and various bits and pieces like that. So it's been pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, and Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, I just remember, I don't think anybody's told you what you're missing over there. It's currently 8 degrees and raining. I thought you'd like to know that.
It's very nice here. I took my mum for a walk in the park. We walked around the lake and saw the ducks and beautiful sunshine and ambient temperatures, I don't know, mid-20s sort of thing. Very nice, very comfortable.
I suppose, Rolly, it's -2 where you are, is it?
Well, actually, I got onto Google and I Googled what is that blue stuff up in the sky, and I found out it has something to do with the sun, apparently.
Yeah.
Auckland's not too bad.
Yeah, we had one of those days today, see, so that's, I thought, goodness, this is strange. What is all that blue stuff? But, apparently it's to do with the sun, so.
Yeah.
Auckland,
Auckland,
you have no trouble in Auckland. I mean,
yeah. Well, the problem is you guys go and flush the opera house over there, and 3 days later we get all the crap here.
Well, that's probably true. I remember being on a bus in Dunedin, going out to the rather twee guest house that we were staying in, and a chap who was a little bit on the simple side leant over to me, not knowing that I wasn't a local. I hadn't opened my mouth at that stage, and he said, "Gee, it's so hot today, it actually hit 20 degrees. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm glad I'm not here in winter. Dunedin for you. Dear, oh dear.
Yes.
Mind you, Invercargill.
Well, I've got a few photographs of snow and so on from which I've been sent by my mum and so on in Birmingham. So in winter and January, certainly they've had quite a bit of snow actually, but it doesn't. Middle of England. The Midlands being one of the furthest spots from the sea, Derbyshire and Birmingham and all those sort of areas are a long way from the sea. So they do get that slightly central continental sort of climate. So it can get very cold. When I was in university in Nottingham, we did get right down to, I think, -9 or something on one occasion, one winter. I remember because all the cars, you drive with sort of 30% antifreeze in the water system, and my radiator froze even with 30% antifreeze, and I had to abandon the car and wait for it to warm up and thaw out the system. But fortunately, it didn't rupture the radiator.
Yeah, I suppose that would happen occasionally if it really got cold.
Yep. And people used to put aluminium foil over half of their radiator, so that you wouldn't cool the car down too much because it was so cold out.
Right. We it's something we don't even contemplate here. Although I believe on Stewart Island, I have friends over there from the visit we made in 2019. One of the days this winter, only about 4 weeks ago, it was snowing at sea level, right on the beach. So it's not the sort of place I'd like to be in at that time of the year. I've seen it in summer, and it can be very, very beautiful there. Not so the Auckland Islands, though, Rolly. I was amazed to see you blokes in shorts and shirts on Auckland Island. You must have had exceptional...
The sun was out and so on that, and the sun's out. It is quite warm, even though the temperature is only +6 degrees. It is quite warm, and particularly if running around doing a bit of work and so on. That, mind you, once you got into the huts or into the tents and started operating, they cooled down pretty quickly then.
Yes.
But put the power supply on the floor, put your feet on top of the power supply, and you're right.
Yeah, there was a Coast Watchers station there during the war. That must have been a bleak sort of a job to have in the middle of the
that's now been dismantled and is no longer there. That was on Enderby for a while. Enderby used to be inhabited actually way back in the 1800s for a while. They tried to raise cattle there, and it was just too cold. And well, one thing is too cold, but the other thing was the logistics of getting their product to market, of course.
Okay.
Getting back to the mainland is horrific, the logistics for that. But they abandoned the place and left this cattle behind. And of course, over the years, it's mutated and right back to that very Spanish bull-looking type stuff. Very, very large front quarters, tapering back to slim, very, very slim hindquarters, and very, very dangerous. We didn't go anywhere near that sort of stuff, that's for sure. But that was on Enderby Island. I don't think Auckland had anything on it, but that's all been eradicated now anyway. They've taken all the wild cattle off and all the got rid of all the rabbits.
And the ham radio operators, they've got rid of those too.
Yeah. Too many rabbits, eh? The whole lot's been locked up now as a conservation area, so you're trying to get there. Well, we've talked this before, Chris. Every ZL has a license to operate there, but you can't get a license or permit to land.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem.
I know that the sign that we're going to have to sign off in 8 minutes has just come up, but is there any amateur radio operators on the Chatham Islands out there in the Pacific East of you?
Not now. Not now. There used to be, but not now. There's, in fact, I'm not sure there's anybody on Chatham's at the moment. Used to be quite a community down there, like Rail Island and the Kermitics. There was a weather station down there, but Rail Island, of course, it's been evacuated now. There's nobody up there. The weather station is fully automated, so nobody on there either.
Yeah, I noticed.
I see a lot of them on 40 metres on FT8, Chris. A lot of the islands are activating.
Oh, okay. What, New Zealand?
Yeah, they come up during the early mornings.
Okay. How are you doing, Terry?
100%, mate.
Yeah, good.
Doing good.
Yeah, it all seems.
Except I need me teeth fitted again, but that's about it.
Oh dear.
I'm missing a set of teeth, but I've got them in a bag here if you want to see them.
Oh no. Did you smash them or something?
No, I'm getting them refitted, and not the best look at the moment.
I see. That's why you got your hand over your mouth.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, covered up, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I might put on a mask.
Yeah. Well, we've got an international hookup going now. We've got Dave in England. We've got Rolly in New Zealand. 3 of the rest of us, I think, are in Melbourne. I must invite some... Oh, wait a minute. I was about to say I must invite some of my United States friends in, but I think it's about 4 in the morning.
Are they bringing guns?
Pardon?
Are they bringing their guns? They can't bring their guns with them.
I've got to be careful. I've got to be very careful what we say about that, because I was talking about hi-fi ham radio, and I put up some video recordings of that on my YouTube channel. And in one of the YouTube channels, one of the discussions that we had, we said something to the effect of, isn't it great that we don't have an NRA? And one of the American amateurs really got his nose out of joint over that and took me to task and said something to the effect of, you'll never get the gun out of my cold, dead hands. But somehow it's an American way of thinking. Defend yourself requires a gun? I mean, surely
change your mind real quick, Chris.
A bit of 2-before will do wonders for most people.
I worked on that buyback for work, and people change their mind real quick when it comes to guns when it's cash offered.
Well, I suppose so, but,
unfortunately.
If you were worried about every second person having a gun on them, it would be a rather strange situation by our standards. What's the gun situation in New Zealand, Rolly? Are they very strict on it there?
Same as is in Australia. You produce a gun at all, you're in big strife.
Yes,
that's for sure.
I think
it always seems strange to me that in the States, I think drinking age is 21, is it?
Is it? Oh,
yes, it is. I think that's right. It's a lot older, isn't it?
21.
But
yeah,
but you can own a gun at 15.
Oh yes, yeah. I just saw the news today that is it Alex Jones ordered to pay whatever it was $45 million to parents of the Sandy Hook massacre because he was one of the the people denying that the massacre in the school took place, and as a result, quite a few of the families that were affected were then sort of attacked by people saying they were all part of the conspiracy, and he's now had a major award against him. It's extraordinary.
God. Okay.
Yeah, he's also put his company into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's money to be made.
Whether that'll get him out of it or not, I don't know.
No, exactly. But interesting. I mean, go back to part of that same sort of culture, isn't it? And go to support that whole issue around maintenance of the right to bear arms, and it is extraordinary, even in my field where we sort of talk about these sorts of things because it's part of our sort of professional management of them. But you talk to some of US colleagues, and they just see, well, of course, 99% of the cases you deal with are shootings, and you come into your work in the morning, and there's 8 shooting homicides from the night before. And that's normal. And that is just normalised. Yeah. It's extraordinary.
I mean, I've got to the point where I say a mass shooting in the US is not news. A week without one would be news.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
What is it now? 3 a week, 4 a week? Or 5 a day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I mean, we have had a shooting where 3 people were involved just this week, but I think that was more a domestic dispute. It wasn't the nature of a mass shooting.
But the common point there was on a farm they had access to guns.
Access to it, that's exactly right. It's a pure access thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's more heavy domestic, wouldn't it be?
While I have you there, and
murder.
before this closes, and it will close at some stage unexpectedly in the next few minutes, next week I'm going to try Jitsi. That's an open source version of something similar to Zoom. And I believe it doesn't require quite as much palaver with entry codes and all that sort of stuff that this does. I haven't tried it.
Zoom had to upgrade their security a lot for corporate use because they're having real challenges, and that's why it's got more and more.
And some groups like web, and courts have moved across to sort of WebEx, I think, with Cisco because they basically wanted that additional security early on, and it just took Zoom a little bit of while to catch up, but I think it has now.
Yeah. Anyway,
and they've added a lot more features too that complicates it as well.
There's one unanswered question in the chat, Chris, and I still didn't get an answer. I still don't know how to connect this damn thing into a DMR radio.
Just wires.
How old is that thing? It looks like it's about 1890.
It's the very first Morse key that I started commercially sending Morse on.
Holy moly. Obviously dust sealed.
And on that, you didn't touch that. The reason why this has got a cap on it and you don't touch that plug there, it had 750 volts on it.
Holy moly. You were keying the HT.
That would speed you up a bit.
Didn't that cause keying chirps and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, yeah, but that just tells me that it's me sending and not somebody else sending.
I thought it was going to be some sort of sealing it away from noxious and flammable fumes like the naval keys.
You'd always tell a Navy trained guy and or a Armed Forces trained guy or a Post Office trained guy. A Post Office trained guy would send CQ and it sounds like he's singing a song. Like a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Navy guy or the Armed Forces, they go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's all good.
Did you ever actually, I believe you were commercially involved via Music Point. Did you get to know operators by their fist?
Yeah. Oh, yes, very much so.
Even before they started to announce...
You can always tell, that's Bill or Joe or whatever.
Yeah, my father was an ex-PMG telegraphist, and he reckoned he could tell who was on shift from the other end.
Yeah, you certainly can. When these things came along, that stuffed the ladder.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you can't tell now. There's no character in the sending.
Although I was surprised, I was looking at a silent film the other day from 1920. There it goes. We've lost our time. Hang on. I'll put the thing back up on the shelf here. We've run out of Zoom time, wouldn't you know it? Thank you for being involved, the people that were. I'll just try and sit that comfortably on the shelf. It doesn't seem to want to sit. Hang on. People will be feeling that. There we go. I'll check my picture. Yeah, I'm a bit on a slope here. Hang on. Getting it all back. Well, as you probably saw, we ran out of our 40-minute time offer. So I'll hand it back to you, Peter. VK3ACZ, if you're listening on 2 meters, VK3AML, with a pause for any other breakers.
3DLW.
Yeah, it sounds like we got Graham there. Yeah, VK3AML and the group, VK3ACZ. Well, certainly an entertaining little Zoom meeting there. Glad I was able to join in the end. And Dave's looking good over there. I don't know if he's still listening or not, but the rain that I reported before just stopped. I haven't looked at the rain radar, but it's certainly a lot cooler here than it is over there. And he missed the big windstorms during the week. Boy, it would have blown a dog off a chain earlier in the week. Hope your antenna system survived okay there, Chris. VK3AML and the group, VK3ACZ.
Yeah, hang on. It did pretty well. We have to drag the whole thing down, and I'm waiting to get a time with my handyman to help me with that. I don't want to do it on my own. I'm as likely as not to fall off the ladder or not have the physical strength to push the pole up on my own, if you'll pardon the expression. So consequently, we're just waiting to make a time. So pull the antenna down. It's actually broken one of its guys, but it's anchored very firmly at the ground and halfway up. And it's a steel mast, not aluminium, so it doesn't have much opportunity of swaying. It can support itself, is what I'm saying, without a guy. But the guys would be extra help. And the VHF antenna has slid down a bit from the top, which really needs to be fixed. And I've got a new section of feed line to go into it, so it's every likelihood that my VHF will improve. And while I'm at it, I'll revive the pulley for the HF antenna and try to get this Saturday night stream on 80 metres somehow with sideband of reasonable quality. All of that is waiting on the antenna renovation. Anyway, around to Graham, VK3DLW. Nice to have you on the Zoom meeting. It's a pity they're so limited in time. I'll have to get on to Jitsi and just see what we can do with that. VK3DLW and group, VK3AML.
Yeah, Roger, Chris, VK3AML, 3ACZ, VK3DLW in the group. Yeah, no, it was good. But once you have the passcode and everything, it all works pretty well. I've used Zoom quite a lot, but yes, they've had to add security features to it. I think they had a few cases of corporate meetings got crashed by people. So and then they've added a lot more features to it to make it more corporately attractive. So yeah, be interesting to see. How do you spell that product, Chris? I wonder. It sounds like Jitsi, Jitsi, or something like that. If I know that, I might be able to look up what whatever app needs to be downloaded for it. I've pressed most things into use here. I've got the iPad which I'm running the your live stream on. I've got the phone which I was using, as you could see, for Zoom.
and then I've got the computer running in the background as well. So just about pressed everything into service here. And yeah, we with the NBN here runs pretty well, although, and Peter will be aware of this, but we had a lightning strike about a month ago, and that put our NBN off the air for about 3 or 4 days till the NBN came out and replaced their box and replaced some stuff in the pit. And the problem, the NBN guys said the problem was that they leave when they convert from DSL to NBN, they leave the phone line attached. So you've got about, he reckoned, a 900-metre lightning conductor into the pit from down the road, and that's what got struck by lightning. So he reckons he's disconnected that to the point where there's now only about 70 metres of cable attached. But we generally get about 98 to 100 megabits per second here, so it's quite good fibre to the curb. But yeah, I've got 2 antennas, well, virtually on the ground. I've sort of pulled them out from under the tree that lost its crown. So my 40-metre wire dipole's rather compromised, as is my 80-metre doublet. But fortunately, my double-ended Zeppelin 20-metre wire Yagi are still in the air. So, but yeah, I've got quite a bit of cleaning up to do, and a surplus of firewood, because it falls down and gets chopped up faster than we use it. Yeah. Anyway, I won't hang around, Chris. Thanks for the transmission tonight. Really interesting. As I said on the Zoom, I feel like I need to listen to Jared over again just to get some feel for exactly all the stuff he was talking about. There was just so much information there, and there's just a lot of stuff that I had no idea what was going on. And it's great to see the special interest groups that are doing that sort of stuff. Anyway, I'll stay 7.3. I'll listen for a while, but I think I shall head off pretty soon. We've got family visiting, and I suspect they'll wake us up pretty early in the morning. VK3AML in the group, VK3DLW.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Graham. Very much appreciated. And nice to see you on the Zoom meeting. I gave you the wrong information last week that I'd be coming along to the radio club, the Sherbrooke Radio Club, on the Monday, and I'd forgotten that Prue and I had already organised to be at somebody's 80th birthday party. There was a time when I used to go to 21st birthday parties. Now it's 80ths. But it was a very good party. It was at a Persian restaurant in Doncaster, and at least we had an excellent meal. But I just regret having given people the bum steer that I'd be at that meeting, because I obviously couldn't double book from a social point of view. Next month. Yeah, I'm surprised that we could get Zoom working, but my only way of streaming it onto the live stream, unfortunately, is to bring the webcam across to the second computer screen, and you do get moire patterns and loss of colour information that way. I'm going to have to work out how to, what do they call it, screen scrape from one computer to the other. There must be a way of doing it, but somebody of my limited computer literacy, it's breaking new ground. The whole thing's breaking new ground, really, when you think of the combination of ham radio and Zoom and live stream. It's a challenge, but it's one that I actually enjoy. Might start winding it up soon, but Rolly, thank you for coming on at such a late hour from Auckland. I'm just wondering if I should start a half hour earlier and perhaps have the Zoom at the start of the session rather than at the end. Okay, round to Peter, VK3ACZ, with a pause if anybody else would like to pop in. VK3AML.
VK3AML, VK3ACZ returning, and 7.3 to you, Graham. I'll catch you on Tuesday, I hope, on the 80 metre net in the morning. The swapping around the times, I suppose, has some merit if we can attract our American compadres, but you never know, Chris. I didn't find the DMR quite as fascinating as Graham obviously did. I've had a couple of goes at Fusion just for the heck of it. I've got Echolink on my phone and I've used it once or twice. I think just so that I could say I used it. I don't know why, but HF is still the thing for me. Silly, really, because there are times like home operation, when my neighbours are running their latest drug crop, there's no way known you're using the HF bands. So I jump in a car and take all my radio gear and batteries and all that, squid poles and that, to go and play portable. It would be so much easier to sit in the shack in one way. So really I should be taking more note. But anyway, for now, with the solar flux on the rise again, maybe, well, I think most days I go out and I always feel that I've justified my expenditure, even though petrol prices, they've started to come back down again, but it was getting ridiculously high there at one stage. I might, I suppose, make this a final as well, Chris, only that to say that, you'll have Graham watching the second half of your broadcast, you'll have me watching the first half again. I also tried to get the comment section, or whatever it's called, at the club meeting. I was talking to Greg at 3ND, and he was trying to show me on his phone there's a little tag that you can click to see the comments in. Can't seem to find it on my little phone, so it looks like I'm stuck with that. But apparently there are a few of those sex ads and porn sites and all that coming up as advertising. Perhaps I don't need to see all that, or if somebody comes up and says, gee, that ACZ won't stop waffling, Willie, hi. But anyway, I'll say a big thank you again, and what an entertaining treat, Bob Heil. You'll have to tell me what the correct pronunciation is. Heil? Yeah, that'll do. Bob Heil was, just loved his delivery, loved the whole thing, and found it fascinating. Until next week then, Chris, I'll bid you my 7-3, and I hope you have a good week, you and Prue. I presume she's improving as well too there. VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
Yes, thanks, Pete. Indeed, she is improving. She actually on Tuesday got sufficiently stir-crazy about being at home for the last 6 months that she said, I'm going to go nuts if we don't get out of the house for a while. So we took a room at the Langham Hotel in South Bank in the city, which is 20 kilometres in that direction. I'm pointing west. And she can only walk about 60 paces, which is a lot more than she used to. But to see the whole of South Bank, the hotel provided a wheelchair where I could push her long distances without too much trouble. And South Bank, of course, is all on the one level, and whatever is not on the one level is accessible by lift. So we had a good time looking at the eating places. There was one particularly good restaurant which was on a floating barge on the Yarra. Had some interesting conversations there with other people that were there. And so we spent the better part of $1,000. It was like going overseas for a holiday, but, in your own city. But certainly waking up in the city and having the shops so close was a novelty. And it really let Prue feel that she was making progress, which is really the point of the whole exercise. The psychological barrier of getting out of your house and being able to do it, she's now just mobile enough to allow it all, and so we decided to give it a try and came back refreshed. But unfortunately I only had 36 hours to throw together something for Saturday night, so I didn't do Jared or Bob Heil as much credit as I probably could have if I had more time. There'll be more time next week anyway, and I always keep stuff in reserve in case there's a copyright problem. Hasn't been so far. I lie. On one out of our 100-odd Saturday nights that I've done this way so far, there was about 30 seconds worth of a silent film, surprisingly. that was shot during the First World War, that was not the whole film, just 30 seconds in the middle of it, that obviously somebody had used for a compilation somewhere else, that they suggested that we trim out. And there is a provision for trimming out sections of YouTube uploads that way. So anyway, I'll take a final listen for any further breakers, and if not, I'll wind up. It's only 6 minutes past 12, but it's been a fairly eventful night. VK3AML, standing by for any final calls.
Yeah, Chris, there was just one point in of Heil's presentation. We said, why haven't I got a Pro 7? The answer is they're out of stock. Otherwise, I'd have one by now. 73s, and cheers, Peter, too. Cheers.
Okay, cheers, Graham, and thanks for that. Yeah, a lot of places have a very slow turnaround on stock. I know that the Annan that I'm after, I saw on an internet page that one guy had been waiting, I think he said 17 weeks for the delivery of the Annan, and considering how much they're worth, that's a long time to wait. Okay, fellas, I'll wish you all very good night, and we'll hopefully catch up next Saturday night. I'll try Jitsi, Jitsi, for those who were on the Zoom chat. You might find us there, JITSI. I'll give more details on next week's live stream, but I will give it a test perhaps with Terry 3FTJS in the meantime, just to see if we can get it working easily and see that the whole thing doesn't cause anything to fall over. Ardran, thanks for the information on the screen sharing that you just gave there. I'll have to read that in greater detail and see if I can do it with the OBS software and all the rest, from one computer to another. Screen mixing as well as audio mixing. Oh boy, do I need more complication. And in the meantime, thanks to Mark Harrison, Dave Ranson, of course, from England. Lovely to see you, Dave. Quite takes you aback to see somebody in summer garb at this time of the year from Australia. And also, it's wonderful that we can make an international contact with Australia, New Zealand, and now England. So one wonders where this is all going. VK3ASY, nice to see you there. VK3XOD, I think, briefly came in on the Zoom but exited for whatever reason. Mick Maxwell, thank you for being there. Pirate, in addition to VK Pirate, which is Greg. Thanks for being there. And Jared particularly, your lecture has gone down a treat. And may I suggest that when we get Jitsi up and running, Jared, if you possibly can, let's get you in on the group discussion to tell us more about what you're doing in that way. Okay, with that, all the best to everybody watching in on the live stream and on 2 meters 147,475. We'll catch you next week. VK3AML now clear of 147,475.
Cheers, Chris. The app's called Jitsi Meet, and there is an iPhone app, and I'm just having a look at it on the web now too.
Okay, thanks, Graham. I'll certainly look at it over the next couple of days. All the best, Terry, and we might do a test of it, Terry, through the week, if that's okay. Nice to see you there, even with the tooth problem. Oh, gosh, the things you get yourself into, mate. VK3AML now clear of 2. And for those on the stream, thanks for sticking with us. I'm glad there'll be a recording of this up. If we have any trouble with copyright on any of the material, it'll be trimmed out. But obviously the Zoom plus the Jared's talk, I got permission from Jared in writing, will be there permanently, we hope. And with that, I'll go to the streaming software and stop streaming. All the best till next week, and I wish you good DX, and hopefully next week with Jitsi we'll be on for a bit longer with an open source discussion medium which will allow more people from more places to get in on this discussion, and will take some of the pressure off me. I would really appreciate a group talk where I don't have to keep pushing things along. It would relieve a lot of the strain. VK3 Alpha Mike Lima. Chris, all the best from Melbourne, Australia. We'll see you later.